the 20s. So this is really nothing new. Sort of a continuation of it. It's been reworked over the years to reflect changes in the needs and certainly the desires and the growth patterns of the state itself. So this is something that has a really long, deep history in New Jersey itself. Has a deep history in the country. I mean, everybody knows about Thomas Jefferson working with L'Enfant, laying out Washington, D.C., and Alexander Hamilton working with L'Enfant, laying out Patterson. So this is something that's really rooted deep in the country's history and something that we're proud to be a part of. My name is Jerry Schaffenberger. I'm the director of the Office for Planning Advocacy. And Dan Kennedy to my left is the deputy director. And we'll be walking you through the plan step by step. And if you have any questions, please be sure to write them down. And we really want to have everybody understand the plan as much as possible right now. And if you have any questions, and we have staff folks outside too who'd be more than happy to answer questions. We also have folks here from the administration, and I'm going to call on a few of them just to raise their hand. Rick Brown from DEP. We have Susan Weber and Jim Lewis from DOT. Right there. We have Chris Stark from the Governor's Office. And there's a few more on their way. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, before I turn it over to Dan, I just want to let everybody know the sort of the trajectory of the plan as it was released. It was actually released by the Governor on October 17th of last year. And he had a press conference and he rolled out the plan and also Executive Order 78 that's associated with the plan. And we've been doing these hearings since, the first one was February 13th. And there's going to be a 30-day comment period after the last hearing, which is scheduled for this Thursday. So even after tonight, you will have opportunities to put in written comments. So we really implore you to give us written comments as much as possible. It's very helpful to have something tangible to refer back to so we can tell from the meeting context exactly what you wanted to see and what you wanted to say about the plan itself. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan now, and then we're going to both be able to answer questions for you in a little bit.
Good evening. I'm going to keep my comments to about 25 minutes to give us about 15-20 minutes of question and answer before we take a short break and get into the public hearing section. Thanks, Jerry, for the introduction. My name is Dan Kennedy. I'm Deputy Director of the Office for Planning Advocacy. This office had been formerly known as the Office of Smart Growth, formerly known as the Office of State Planning. Back in different administrations, it had different forms, was structurally positioned under different departments. First under the Treasury, then under the Department of Community Affairs. Recently, through a reorganization plan, our office was moved under the direction of the Lieutenant Governor within the Department of State, housed within what's called the Business Action Center, which includes basically the business attraction and retention efforts that go side by side with the EDA's efforts, and also side by side the efforts of Choose New Jersey. So this partnership that we have includes planning. So we are the folks that are trying to get the planning efforts back on track in the state of New Jersey. As Jerry mentioned, statewide planning has been something that New Jersey has done since at least as early as the 20s. The modern version of the state plan came about as a byproduct of the State Planning Act, which was adopted by the legislature under the Kane administration. There have been two versions of the state plan adopted in the state in the last 20-25 years. This would be the third version of the plan. Can I see just a show of hands? How many people in the room have been involved with either cross-acceptance, plan endorsement, center designation, something about the state plan in the past? Okay. So everyone knows that we have the concept of planning at the state level has been around for quite some time. There have been some successes and not so successful stories as a result of the state plan efforts. So today we're going to try to walk you through what we see for the future of state planning and how we think we can transition the existing form of state planning into that vision. Walk you through the plan development process, which goes back in a real way to 2004. when the State Planning Commission started the cross-acceptance process, which is the process required by the State Planning Act to revise and re-adopt the state plan. That's supposed to happen by statute every 3 years. Last I checked, it was 2012. The last plan that was adopted was in 2001. So this administration inherited a product as a result of most of the phases of the cross-acceptance being completed that had a lot of disagreement with local government. This disagreement wasn't something we concocted or kind of made up. This was something that was documented through the cross-acceptance process from the ground up, from local government. This process took shape during the past couple of administrations when the lieutenant governor was a sheriff in Monmouth County and the governor was a prosecutor. So this isn't something that we've kind of, a good program that we feel should be turned over just to kind of put our mark on it. Quite opposite. This is basically a process that is supposed to result in a level of agreement with local government and a level of consensus as a result of the cross-acceptance process. But when this administration came into Trenton, there was nothing anywhere close to consensus with the regulated community or the local government, which we mean the county and municipal government. Nowhere near the level of agreement that you could actually argue that there had been some consensus reached as a result. There's, in every town in the state of New Jersey is required to have a master plan. As a result, the zoning ordinance that your local township governing body is required to adopt is supposed to be consistent with that master plan. But we have an interesting dynamic in New Jersey where we have a couple layers of government to consider. Counties also have master plans. Counties have authority primarily over roads and drainage, which are very important variables to consider. But they've also, over the last generation or so, stepped up into a role of organizing municipalities voluntarily, not because they've got a lot of authority, but because there's efficiencies involved. And a lot of the issues that we care about in the state in terms of transportation and water quality and air quality are really difficult to deal with town by town. Protection of open space, protection of farmland. Those kind of things are really difficult to do property by property, town by town. So counties have stepped into a role that is a real meaningful one in this state to organize municipalities and try to get some common vision for that region. We also have authority at the state level that exists oftentimes as a trickle down from federal government. We have authority from the federal government that's trickled down to the state government for under the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. We have to make transportation investments that come through the Department of Transportation and through our municipal planning organizations in the state. So as a result, the local governments plan and zone, the relationship with the counties is pretty strong. But then we have state government that has all these different functional operations in different departments and different authorities. The legislature grants those authorities separately to the departments. So we have a DEP silo where a lot of the environmental restrictions are housed. We have a DOT silo where a lot of the transportation issues are dealt with. We have a silo in relation to affordable housing in the Department of Community Affairs. Pretty much none of these silos are required to work together. And we know that these issues are all cross-cutting. You really can't talk about transportation unless you're talking about environment. You can't talk about the environment unless you're talking about house. So all these issues are interrelated, but there are silos created by our statutes that haven't effectively been managed through the state planning process. So we have all these different layers, and we have all this different authority. And we could talk to you tonight about centralized state planning, but in the end, we don't have the authority under the State Planning Act to tell your town how to zone. So that is one thing I wanted to reinforce early, is that nowhere in this plan does it call for the municipalities to do anything that doesn't work into their best interest. And that's, some of you may look at that as a strength, some of you may look at that as a weakness, but that's the reality. So what is our authority over the state planning? If the governor chooses to use the state plan in a way to organize itself from an investment perspective and a coordination perspective between all the important functions of state government, then a state plan, we think, can be effective. So that's how we are choosing to use it. Some of the features of state plan you may have been in rooms talking about, the state plan policy map and the plan endorsement process, which both started with good lofty goals and desires. The state plan policy map and plan endorsement process are recommended by this plan to be phased out, and I'll talk to you about how we plan on recommending doing that. We think that by listening to local governments through the cross-acceptance process, by listening to a range of stakeholders through our continued cross-acceptance over the last year, we heard resoundingly that the biggest problem that the regulated community faces and the municipality faces is that when they approach planning and zoning locally or making investment decisions on their private property, they face challenges from state government, and one of the main challenges is state government. They have also pointed some criticism to local government also, but that's under the State Planning Act, that's not our authority to affect. The statutes would have to be revised if that would ever be the case. So we're looking at doing our part in solving the issues related to physical and economic development in the state. So we've focused this plan by basically listening to what local government is telling us and what the regulated community is telling us. On state agency coordination, the horizontal organization of state government, as a first step, if we're ever going to have any chance at having a good, solid, productive relationship with local government. So we're thinking about organizing ourselves first before we have any sort of hope of having more productive conversations with local government moving into the future. The solution for the state plan policy map, we have one of our attachments to the state plan is a linkage document that discusses all the linkages between the State Planning Act, the State Plan Map, and state programs, statutes, regulations, and requirements. And the State Planning Act requires us to identify areas of the state that are suitable for growth, limited growth, and conservation and agricultural kind of uses. We don't think that requirement means that we have to produce a map. We have for you today, and it's been online for several weeks now, a proposal for a criteria-based system that can use from information from the bottoms up to build a new system to meet that statutory requirement that we have to identify places. And we plan to use it not to basically, from a top-down approach, require any sort of changes. It's basically for us, the state level, to identify where can we back up the local desires with investment priority and also permitting flexibility. And it just doesn't mean development. There's priorities that we need to be very serious about in this state that have to do with growth from a physical development perspective, actually building things or having things redeveloped. There's also investments that need to be made in the state related to land preservation. We know that when we preserve a farm, we don't necessarily always buy that farm. We buy it, we preserve the farm with the goal of keeping agriculture viable. So what are the investments we need to make to keep the agricultural industry viable? What are the investments we need to make in our already preserved parks to make those assets as viable as possible moving forward? So there's investments that we prioritize on both sides. So this is not just about economic growth, but it's also about preservation in the context of how we can preserve land and voluntarily from willing sellers using compensated programs and innovative planning tools to see that preservation can happen at a lower cost to state and local governments, but also respect the fact that this is private property, and if they don't want to sell, they don't have to. Some of the tools that we talk about in the plan in relation to our preservation goals are not related to outright purchase of properties. They are basically purchasing easements from the properties, owners, and where the property stays in private hands, they still continue to manage their properties, make money off their properties if they're agricultural, and pay their taxes and improve their houses and raise their families. So those are the kind of tools that we're talking about in relation to preservation. We are not heavy-handed in this plan in relation to regulation because we feel that our preservation goals can be met through more willing seller and willing buyer relationships using our tools under the municipal land use law that can be improved, and also the fiscal tools that we have now and can generate with being more creative with our resource and revenue coming in to make sure that we have revenue for land preservation moving forward without being an exorbitant burden on the tax base. There's likely going to be, at 7 o'clock or even during the question phase, you're likely going to hear a wide range of concerns, public policy concerns from the room. And I think that's what we expect, and that's what we've heard over the last 4 meetings. So the question I guess we all have to ask ourselves is it okay to let state government continue to be not working together? What are the fiscal impacts to our tax, to the people we answer to in terms of property taxpayers and people who are looking to improve land area in our state and redevelop? How is it smart for us to continue to let state government be disorganized? So we may disagree on a lot of things. Maybe we can agree that the state of New Jersey is a complex organization that needs some level of organization, some level of strategy that may not, which we're not presenting here, does not creep into the day-to-day life of local government or property owners, but also is effective in making sure that what is desired at the local level can be translated up through a process. The state of New Jersey can become a better partner to deliver on what the local desires are. We have resource constraints, both from a fiscal and environmental perspective, that require us to rethink our strategy at this time. We don't think the strategy we have in place now, the 2001 plan, effectively deals with the issue of state government coordination. State government coordination has been and will always be the top issue of local government through the state planning process. So what we think we have basically put forth to the public to let us know what they think is a plan that has a set of values, a set of core goals that can capitalize on the strengths and assets of our state, which includes our people. We have a real sound base of our workforce. Our people are talented, they're passionate, they're well-educated, and they're one of the big reasons why the companies that are here and they want to come here are going to stay here and maybe grow here. We have extensive physical infrastructure in this state that certainly needs improvement. We need to make investments in this state to keep our existing transportation network healthy. Are we going to make the hard choices to make those investments in the places that can really deliver economic development assets to the regions of this state that are local? Our geography is unique and diverse. We have a state here like no other, I think. I'm a 4th generation New Jersey resident. I'm raising 5th generation New Jersey resident in my house right now. I really love this state. I know many of you do also. We kind of put up with some of the New Jersey-isms because of how interesting this state is, from our coasts to the Pinelands to the Highlands, to the job opportunities, to our transportation system, to the arts and culture that's in this state. So as New Jerseyans, I guess we're used to putting up with a little bit because we think we get so much back. So that's why I'm here still, and that's why I think that's our story. Part of our story is also that we've got a serious base of industry clusters in the state that can employ our folks to make sure they can pay their bills, put their kids through school, live a happy and productive life. If we just really start paying attention to what those industry clusters mean. So we have identified in the plan some key sectors in this state that we think are here now, that we want to grow organically. This is not a home run economic development strategy. We're kind of pulling a pie in the sky. We're not talking about making monstrous investments to get firms here from all over the place. These are the companies that are here. They have bases in New Jersey already. We can keep them if we are smarter about how we treat them. And of course, there's a property tax conversation that goes along with this. There's a regulatory conversation that goes along with this. The state plan doesn't really give us the authority to get into those details. We know that those are issues. The governor and the lieutenant governor, this administration, everyone in the cabinet understand the reality of the business climate of the state. And in a big way, this plan is the kind of quality of life complement to those ongoing efforts. We know that in the past, the state government has suffered from lack of leadership from above on these issues, and we think that we've got a team in place, like them or not, that can actually deliver on what the state of New Jersey has to do to assist local governments and the regulated community, stay in this state, be effective, and be prosperous. To do that, we set a real high-level mission. We're not talking about what we think should happen on your property. We're not telling, part of our vision is not telling the town what to be. Our vision really, I'm going to read it verbatim so there's no confusion, that New Jersey will be the national leader in private and public investment, which supports sustainable communities that attract and provide strong economic opportunities, preserve our state's natural resources, and create healthier communities to work, reside, and recreate. So the key word I think in this is support. That our job is not to dictate, but to support towns as they try to meet the challenges they face at the local level with, of course, with property taxes and caps and all that. What's our role in supporting local government? And our mission to do in that is to focus our policies, New Jersey's policies, state policies, and investments on these regions of the state. We need to foster job growth, support effective regional planning, because we think that that's regional is probably better scale than state to really get into some of this detail, and to get to that end product. We think that the plan shouldn't be, this is what we heard from local governments, and we may hear people saying differently today, and that's their right, but we think that this plan shouldn't be and isn't a top-down approach to force compliance with the statewide land use plan. This isn't a land use plan. It's more of a policy plan that can really get New Jersey on the right track from a planning perspective. It's not an additional layer of bureaucracy, as I mentioned up front. Some of the heavy bureaucratic functions of the state planning process of the past, like the policy map and the plan endorsement process, we're arguing we should back away from and replace it with things that are much more bottoms up and much more flexible. It's certainly not, and the state plan has never been a substitute for local and regional comprehensive plans or local zoning, nor will it take away the authority of local governments to plan and zone their land under the authority of the municipal land use law. It's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to solve all of our problems. This is not something that if you implement tomorrow, the world will be fixed and New Jersey will be, will meet its mission. But there's definitely a lot of things that need to break our way for us to turn the corner. We think that this framework allows us to have conversations about some of the niche issues in the state and give us a kind of a track to go on. We also don't think that as local governments are laying off cops and firemen and town managers that we should impose on costs to them to involve themselves in the state planning process. Plan endorsement was a process that was intended to be a way for local governments to get certification from the state that they were consistent with the state plan. Some planners liked it, some planners didn't, but many local governments did not like the process. We've had 17 go through. We have 565 municipalities in the state. So 17 municipalities of the 565 certainly isn't getting to any sort of scale where we can say that that program has been effective. The municipalities that have gone through the process have reported it cost them between $300,000 and $500,000 on average to go through this process. And a planner that didn't like the process acknowledged it was some sort of cruel hoax where the state said if you did these things, we would deliver incentives to you. And so they spent the money, they did the right thing, they did what they were asked to do. And in the end, the state pulled out, never really delivered its end. What we plan on doing, though, is into this new system is to translate forward the value of the work for those 17 municipalities to make sure that the work they did, they would qualify as a priority area of the state for our new criteria system. So we don't think we can impose those costs on local governments. Maybe it wasn't right to do before, but we know it's not right to do now and moving forward, so we're arguing that those costs should be abated. The plan includes guiding principles for state decision-making. Some of these principles come from the lessons we learned through the red tape process, with Lieutenant Governor taking the lead for that. Those are predictability. That's not to say that every permit that gets submitted to the DEP is going to get approved. What we're saying is that the state of New Jersey will offer a clearer path and quicker answers, and the path and answers offered by one department will not deviate significantly from another department. So you're not going to get one department doing this and one department doing this, where you don't really know how to comply with the state requirements because it's impossible to meet the requirements of one agency or the other. So basically the fact that we have is a no without anyone telling you. You have to basically have to spend a lot of time and money to get to that point where you just give up. So predictability could be a principle that can make the fiscal and the relationship with local government stronger. Spatial efficiency, this is our way of saying that we're going to place value on making investments in areas where infrastructure can be supported in ways that we keep our long-term service costs manageable. That we think up front when we make investments on infrastructure, how is that going to impact the long-term costs to our current and future residents because we have to deliver services for some of these things forever. So spatial efficiency is our way of saying that we're going to be thoughtful about when we make investments, how are we going to make sure that we're not passing the buck down to future generations. Leveraging assets, the state of New Jersey is committed under this principle to working with the private sector, higher education, and all levels of government to ensure that state assets are leveraged in strategic locations. This is our call to all the hundreds or thousands of acres of, the morass of parking lots in our urban areas that are owned by state government. We've got assets that we have through transit that can be leveraged. The state of New Jersey has assets that could work with local government to see that their local economic development objectives are seen through. So we want to consider those, and the answers are going to be on a case-by-case basis, working with the towns. We're not saying we're going to recommend selling off every any transit parking lot that we have, but there may be some opportunities for us to work with local government. We think that's a principle we should take seriously. The next principle we talk about is sustainability, and there's a lot of different ways to look at this. The way we're looking at this in the state, for the state's plan, is to plan for and respond to current and future challenges and opportunities through adaptive decision-making that accounts for social, economic, environmental protection issues. So as we're making decisions today, we're going to consider the implications of those decisions on tomorrow. And then we're not going to make decisions solely on the economic, social, or environmental benefit, but we have to have a wide range of lenses to look through to make our good decisions that deliver short-term results without creating long-term issues for our state that will get passed down to future generations. And then we're also talking about institutionalizing change in a way that we can stop dealing with things permit by permit. If there's something that doesn't work or is stupid in state government, we want to change the regulation, we want to change the program. Or do we have an investment strategy in the state that's not working? Well, let's change that investment strategy to get it right. So we want to make those changes instead of having these audibles on a case-by-case basis. To get there, we have 4 goals. The first goal is targeted economic growth. In this goal, we identify the industry sectors that we think are key for statewide regional importance. We provide a simple map in here to identify where those sectors are right now today. We recognize there's more work to be done to identify where those core clusters are. That's work that will be done in the future. We think we want to identify conditions for sectors of statewide significance that are not ideal right now, working with stakeholder groups from those industries, then translate that to action in local and state government, and then share what we've learned with local government to see that if they want to attract and retain firms that the state also has interest in, we can start working together on that through collaborative processes. In this, we want to also support land and water-based industries, so our farmers, our fishermen, are not forgotten in this conversation. They are identified as important industries, as well as our tourism industry in the state and our potential for growth in the green energy industry. Our second goal is in relation to effective planning at the regional level. So we're going to not offer in this plan the heavy-handed detail that you may have seen in the past plans. As a result, you may not see what this means for your backyard, and that's kind of the point. We're not interested in drilling down to your backyard and figuring out, because the state doesn't have a rational place to be in that conversation, other than from a higher perspective. We think that detailed planning deserves to be had and taking place at the local level, with some level of connection to the state that is less heavy-handed than it is now. We want to investigate and basically transition in a new criteria-based system that's from the bottoms up, to phase out the state plan policy map, to transition into a priority growth investment area criteria. That proposal is actually available tonight. If you want to ask questions about that tonight, you can do that also. And we think we should strengthen the county planning role to facilitate regional collaboration in places where there is interest to do that. We think that the County Planning Act could be amended in a way that allows municipalities that currently work with their county governments effectively to seek efficiencies to continue that relationship and to strengthen it, if they seek to do that. The third goal is related to preservation and enhancement of our state's critical resources. I spoke a little bit before about our desires to continue our success of our state's preservation programs, both farmland and open space. We know those programs are only successful because of the strong relationship and the strong advocacy and the strong fiscal partnership and administrative partnership we have with municipalities and county governments. So we want to continue that success. We also know that we need to coordinate functional plans of those programs with economic development plans, so we're not preserving land in areas that are targeted for economic growth, and we're not, and the reciprocal also isn't true, where we're not targeting land for preservation we basically don't want to build roads into places where we want to preserve a lot of farmland, and we also don't want to preserve farmland where we see industry clusters having an opportunity to flourish, and also to provide retail, housing, public services that are required to support that growth. So we need to be really careful to meld those functional plans at a high level to make sure that we're not, at the state level, stepping on each other's feet. And the fourth goal is tactical alignment of state government. We need to enable effective resource allocation, coordination, and cooperation amongst the statewide players as a first step to really make sure that state government is working together. It's almost kind of an embarrassment to say that we need to take this step, right? We should all assume that our state government is working together, and there's been a lot of great progress made in the last year and a half, 2 years under this administration to see that happen. So we want to institutionalize that progress that's been made in a way that's never been done before through a new steering committee that was formed by the executive order. So we can basically have state implementation through the state plan, really deliver what the local government's always wanted, that state cooperation. So we're going to take that part most seriously. We're going to require our agencies to develop and implement department strategic plans that would be basically be advised by the state plan. We also plan on discontinuing the plan endorsement process to ensure that every dollar spent on planning and zoning locally is spent on issues that are most related to local interests and not delivering on a state agenda. I went a little longer than I wanted to, but now is a good opportunity for me to stop talking. Thank you for your patience and attention, and I look forward to speaking with you over the next couple hours.
Thanks, Dan. What we do, if you want to ask a question now, if you just raise your hand, we'll try and get as many questions in as we can. I would ask that you withhold any comment from the comment period. Just limit this strictly to questions so we can get as many in before we have to break. So, yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, Jerry. Dan, in this meeting and previous meetings, used the word siloed many times. Could you explain, just so that we're all sure we all understand what you mean?
Sure.
Just what it is you mean by silo.
Sure. Silos are a metaphor for things happening in one area without knowledge of what's happening in another. And that's the way a lot of agencies sort of evolve over time, where they sort of do their own little thing, separate and apart from other agencies, rather than working together. And this is something that's sort of a consequence of any organization that's large enough and around long enough where they develop these silos. It could happen in business too, where different departments don't really work in tandem with each other. So that's simply what silos mean. By breaking down the silos, that improves the communication and theoretically improves the efficiency. Yes, sir?
In the state of New Jersey, the state policy has driven the state of New Jersey to the 50th most business-friendly state in the country. My question to you is, knowing the state government has done that, how can we trust the state government to do what's right for the people?
You know, that's absolutely an unbelievably good question, and it really rings a lot of bells. Governor Christie came in here. Let me just answer, okay? Governor Christie came into office promising this sort of change. His whole administration is based on this sort of change. And change is one of those words that's been worn out over the last few elections, if you know what I mean.
But wait a second, the legislature hasn't changed.
I know.
He can't do it all by himself.
Exactly.
Exactly, so nothing's going to change.
No, nothing. It won't change as quickly and as broadly as we would like. I'm with you on that one. But the governor is great at reaching across the aisle and brokering deals. We have a 2% property tax that never would have happened in anybody's wildest imaginations. Also, the increased pension and health benefits contributions. All of these things happen as a minority governor. So you're right, it would move much quicker if things were a little bit different there. But he is making good progress, and he's one governor who can make this work. And he has assured both Dan and I, face to face, that he would support this program and make it work for economic development. Yes, ma'am. Hey, Judy.
Hi, nice to see you. There was a phrase that you used that made me a little nervous when you did your presentation.
Only one?
Well, yeah, this is the one that made me the most nervous. The phrase you said is we are not looking to be heavy-handed with regulation.
Right.
And then you said we can instead use fiscal and revenue and blah, 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 some other kind of tool. I thought you said fiscal, revenue, and political tools. The whole thing made me nervous. I feel that in New Jersey, we have to be really careful about regulation if we want to protect our natural resources, our air quality, our water quality, et cetera. So what does that mean we are not going to be heavy-handed with regulation?
Well, speaking in relation to the plan, we don't want this plan to be a heavy-handed plan, which typically, and I'm a small-town mayor, so I worked on this with a view from not being want to be told what to do from the state level. So we wanted this to be something that municipalities could participate in if they so choose, or not participate in. We wanted to respect home rule and leave the local decisions at the local level. We feel those sort of land use decisions are best served at the local level, where citizens are appointed to their local zoning boards and local planning boards and elected office. So that's really what we mean by not having a heavy hand. We want to work with everybody, really have everybody on the same page, but every town in the state is different. This is like 566 snowflakes in these towns. Everyone is different. And you have to respect that. Some towns want a lot of development. I tell this story all the time. We met with a bunch of mayors and local officials, see what they would want to see out of the state plan and how can we help. We had one person, one mayor, a friend of mine from a town in Monmouth County, said, listen, we don't want centers, we don't want sewers, we don't want sidewalks, we want to be left alone. We're a horse community and we want to remain that way. The other side of the table is another guy saying, we want all the development over here, we want to develop. So that's the sort of diversity of opinion on their development destiny that we're trying to respect and protect. And that's what we mean by not having a heavy hand, by forcing something down from Trenton and leaving these sort of decisions at the local level.
What about regulation on industry? Where does that come into play in the state plan?
Well, regulation-
Air pollution laws being stricter in New Jersey than they are in other states, for instance.
Well, each agency has their own regulations. What Dan mentioned before with breaking down the silos and trying to eliminate the restrictive regulations or the conflicting ones is really the ones that are most bothersome to industry. Don't forget, we spoke to a lot of industry folks, a lot of businesses who come to New Jersey, and they say, the regulations are killing us. You can't operate a business in here. So one of the things that the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor want to do is identify the regulations. So if you go to DEP, you don't get one story and go to DOT and get another story in DCA, like everybody in the room here, DCA and Department of Ag and so on. So we're trying to identify them and eliminate those regulations so businesses, number one, have predictability. They don't want to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on a lot of consultant studies and everything, get tired of regulations where they end up throwing up their hands and saying, we're out of here, we'll go to Texas, we'll go to Pennsylvania. So that's what we mean by the regulations. And it's smart. I mean, to undo the tangle. And Judy, they are legion. And you see the number of regulations in this state. The Lieutenant Governor has made a tremendous stride with the Red Tape Commission where they're going to undo a lot of these regulations already. But this is really going to help bring everybody to the table, identify them, and settle them. I just want to go different questions, but it was so limited, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. What exactly is the steering committee, or better yet, who's going to be on it, and what law authorizes such a committee?
Well, the steering committee is something that's going to be chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, and on the steering committee are going to be representatives from various agencies within state government. And what they're going to do, they're going to get together and they're going to be able to identify the regulations that I was just speaking about. That's where the rubber's going to meet the road as far as undoing these sort of regulations, getting everybody's action plans together, the action plans that are really going to make this plan work within the agency levels. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, which I actually asked of the Red Tape Commission and presented at the time they were having public hearings. I'm still not finding it addressed in what I'm reading in the state plan.
Okay, I'll try and answer, but it's a red tape.
How do you plan to protect our water supply watersheds, especially when the watersheds are more than one town? You cannot always guarantee that there has to be something above just the municipal level if you really want to protect your drinking water in the state.
Well, I mean, DEP and their regulations are still going to be in effect, certainly. What we don't want are duplicate or conflicting regulations. So when we talk about regulations, it's just operating smarter, not necessarily recklessly or more heavy-handed, but somewhere where you can align them where they don't fight each other. So that's still going to be in effect, and that's where the protection is going to come. Yes, sir.
Could you explain a little bit about the timing of the commission's action after the comment period ends, and what you expect to happen with the draft plan in terms of its implementation after that?
Sure. There's a 30-day period after Thursday's meeting, which is March 1st, March 31st, when you can submit written comments. So legally, we have to, give 30 days. We're going to work on revising the draft that's up there now, Dave, and then we're going to post a red line version with any changes or additions or revisions to it. And then the SPC will consider that draft, the revised draft, in probably April, because we have to have, statutorily, we have to have this done 60 days from the last meeting, the last public hearing. So that's sort of the timeline. On the State of New Jersey website, in the Department of State, right where the draft is right now. How about something in the back? Yes, yeah. No, all the way in the back, yep.
Yes, hi. You're mayor, I think, of a neighboring Homedale. And I think you're probably aware of what's going on in Homedale as far as the sewer service extension permits.
Yes.
And the original state plan had designated planning areas, environmentally sensitive areas, especially for watersheds, that the other young lady spoke to.
Right.
And what I'm concerned with is, if there's such a fight for economic recovery in this town, and in this state, what will happen to the supplies, as this woman mentioned about our watersheds?
Right.
And the extension of sewer service areas into those watersheds, which are supposed to be basically remained as rural and collecting water instead of dispersing water to the oceans.
Well, keep in mind, all of those planning areas that exist now under the old plan, they'll be translated into priority growth areas or priority preservation areas. So it's not like it's going to be open season on one or the other, they'll be translated into the new system.
Okay, just to follow up on that, you spoke about conflicts and trying to be consistent.
Right.
And as far as I can see, Manasquan, you're taking sewer service areas out of that watershed, but the DEP is trying to extend them into the Homedale watershed.
Right.
Which does not make sense. There's an inconsistency there.
We're getting into sort of specifics. If we can keep it general to the plan.
Well,
those are
that's
sort
what I'm
of,
saying. Watersheds should have certain specifications on extensions of growth, and sewer service areas are the stimulus for growth.
right. And the DEP regs will still be in effect there. So this plan is not going to undo a department. So that'll still be governing those sort of decisions. Yes, sir.
Reading through this plan, I'm just wondering why there wasn't more emphasis placed on protecting private property rights, because I didn't read much about it at all. Private property rights, and I read through the list of goals here, and I would think that should fall pretty high on the list, because people are nervous. I know I'm nervous about this plan.
Sure, I understand. We've heard it, believe me. And this is why this is a draft. We're going to take all of these, and if there maybe it could be a simple fix, simply adding language or clarifying language to that effect. That's fine. And if you want, during the comment period, make the comment. If you have suggestions, we're there. We really want to make this as good a product as possible, and work with everybody here. And there's a diversity of opinion, like there's diversity of towns I was talking about. Wait till you hear the comments. It's going to be all over the map, and that's healthy. That's what we want to hear. Yes, sir.
The last meeting that we've had, and including this one, you've gotten a lot of comments, a lot of questions for the past meeting. Are you making any changes to this plan because of those comments and questions?
Well,
Or just taking comments and questions on the plan is going to be passed as it is?
No. In fact, as I said, you're going to be able to see a draft with those changes in there.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be fair to make the changes now until we have all the hearings.
I'm just concerned that you're going to make some changes.
Yeah.
Because the citizenry are asking for changes.
Sure. And you have to understand,
I understand we're not stakeholders, but we don't know, who the stakeholders are.
I answered your question, I think, right, that we are? Yeah. Okay. Somebody different. Young lady in the burgundy.
I've came all the way from Ocean County. We have a beautiful college there that I'm sure the people from Ocean County would love to hear about the plan. I know you have to only have 6. So Ocean County is a very large county. You say it's going to affect every town in the whole state. Why wouldn't we be able to have a hearing in Ocean County? You have standing room only here.
Right.
A lot of people came here from that county to hear this, and I'm sure a lot of them couldn't make it this far. We came like 40 miles or so in this weather, not this weather, but this time of year. And
More than 60 degrees.
yeah, here, and it's just a little bit inconvenient for everybody.
Yeah, I understand, and that's, the administration has decided to go with the 6. Yes, sir.
I wonder
Yes.
who gets the approval of this whole plan?
The State Planning Commission, they will vote on the final version.
Not the legislature?
No, the
Why
SBC.
not?
And who elected?
Well, that's the way the law is.
Well, who elected these people?
Well, they're appointed by the administration or prior administration. One at a time, please. This is the way the law was written in 1985, so this is what the administration inherited. So we have to follow the law. The statute says this. So, yes, sir. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Hi. I had a question. I'm not sure if it was covered, but as a policy plan, there's been a lot of talk about consolidation and shared services.
Right.
Does this dovetail with that concept?
Well, I mean, broadly, I guess, yes, it's something that we would like to see. That's a little bit different animal because that's a lot of legislative things. Now there was a bill, S2, that was just passed about consolidation, and it's a good first step. Now I'm talking like a mayor, you know, it doesn't go far enough because there's a lot of impediments to shared services. But it's a good step in the right direction. So that's the sort of thing. I like the idea of shared services and consolidation voluntarily. I don't like, towns being forced to do it. I think it's wise to let them, do it when it makes sense to them and it makes sense to the residents. So, but I mean, that's again just me. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Who makes up this state planning commission? Who are these people?
Who are these people? It's a mix of public members and also cabinet members.
Public meeting?
Public meeting folks from around the state. They're chosen by. They usually send in a letter of interest, and they're reviewed. Then they go before the Senate for confirmation, and if they're voted on, then they're put on the commission. So.
Are they from special interest groups, or are they?
No.
Taxpayers?
They're taxpayers. They're regular guys.
Are there any requirements that go along with the choosing? They should be property owners, they should be, residents of the state. They
Yeah,
should be,
you can't be born and king here.
some business.
It wasn't very nice.
I mean, the requirements are typical. You get a born age, a resident of New Jersey and all that. But the members are listed in the plan. And, yeah, so there is a mix
Are they
of...
representing the property owners, private property owners here? Anybody specifically representing the property owners?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're public members. They're representing, the residents of the state. So,
That
the
doesn't
way...
mean they're representing the people of the state.
The way...
Transportation, I see, the environment, I see,
Yeah.
I don't see anything that says, that we're being represented. And I really think being that we are
Right.
the majority of the people in the state, we weren't asked to be stakeholders. Nobody asked us to have an input in this plan prior to it being planned. Right.
But that answers your question about the SPC. That's how it's done.
My question at all.
Well,
Get more questions.
Okay, I'll answer it again. The SBC is chosen by the administration at the time. And they're chosen, they send a letter of interest, and they go before the Senate for confirmation. So the governor is in office now. So he would take this and send it to the appointments folks. Now, you know how the governor has been doing with his appointments. It's sort of a conga line, it's 300 folks waiting to be confirmed. So that's the way it goes. The governor chooses people to serve on this commission. Then they go before the Senate for confirmation. If the Senate confirms them, then they become city
Can I
members.
just add one simple thing to that? Does
Yeah.
the balance of the Senate also have an effect on, who gets accepted and who doesn't?
Well, it could. I mean, unfortunately, that's why there's a bit of a backlog there, and that's the reality. Yes, sir, in the back.
Within the body of the plan, there's a mention of using incentives to gain cooperation from the municipalities.
Right.
We've also talked about green energy, supporting green energy industry. This usually involves some sort of incentives, tax breaks, increasing of public or protected lands, involves the cost of maintaining those properties, and remediation of costs to the municipalities, which I believe Dan addressed earlier. New Jersey is blessed with being 3 years in a row the state with the highest per capita tax burden. My question is, how are these costs and the other costs, which I'm sure we have not even touched on here, going to be addressed without the taxpayer in New Jersey being additionally burdened to pay these costs?
Right, there's not going to be any additional taxes to implement this plan. We're going to do it, please let me answer, okay? We're going to do this with existing funds now. That's another thing that all of the agencies are going to have to do, is identify, because all of these agencies like DOT and DEP have to do their part for the infrastructure. And that's existing money, it's not going to be any additional. Yes, we'll take one more and two more, okay? Shelley.
Okay, looking at the resolution for the number of meetings, public input meetings, that resolution says that there shall be at least 6. It does not say 6 and only 6. Now, it's referred to someone anonymously in the administration having decided only 6. Who was that?
I couldn't tell you.
Well, can we find, because that is against the resolution. Unless it's Governor Christie or Lieutenant Governor Guadagni, they don't have the authority to override that. And we would like to have one per county. I think every one of these meetings I've been at, everyone has said there are not enough meetings. We want more input. And as you just said, there's 60 days until you produce this other plan. Why are we limiting our input? Why have we left out all these thousands and thousands of people that live in millions of people that live in New Jersey?
Shelley, I will pass it along again. I'll pass it along to the administration.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
If the state is broke, where is the money?
It's from existing budgets that already exist.
Bills first.
And the second question?
My second question is, I'm flabbergasted, as many people in this room are, that there was no public notice of this. If there was, it was probably done in a way where most of the people who live in the state of New Jersey were unaware. Let me finish.
Okay.
Secondly, is there any place where anyone who could not make these 6 very limited meetings, read any of the minutes of the meeting, see any video?
We're not taping it. We don't have video.
Minutes. Every meeting should have minutes. Where can we read minutes from all these meetings that transpired?
Well, we don't have the minutes posted. There's no action taken at these meetings, so.
Why not?
Because we're not taking any action here. We're here just for comment. The way the meetings is, hold on, folks. The way the meetings are structured by law is that these are public comment meetings where we sit here and we take your comment. There's no voting, there's no action, there's no quorum.
But this is changing everything that's happening in New Jersey. So New Jersey residents should be aware of what's going on.
Absolutely.
And if you're limiting these meetings and you're keeping it very quiet, how are we supposed to have an input?
Well, I would say we're keeping it quiet. We're following the law as far as notification. We've noticed it 30 days in advance. I don't know the statute off the top of it. Do you know the number? State Planning Act. But yeah, the state.
What statute?
I'll give you the reference in between time. I'm not a magician. I don't know off the top of my head.
Because it seems to me that the way that this is all transpiring is very against our rights.
Okay. Listen, folks, let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll open the floor up for the public hearing. We're a few minutes after 7, okay? Thank you very much. So search your ladies, come back in 5 minutes and we'll get started. Before we start, I just want to say a tremendous thank you to Peter Reinhardt at Monmounth University, Peter Reinhardt of the Kids of Real Estate Institute, for allowing us used their wonderful facility for this. They've been tremendous as far as setting this up. A lot of work goes into, planning these hearings, and to have a facility be so cooperative and so understanding really helps. I just want Peter to say a few words and then welcome everybody, and then we'll get started, okay? Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? No. Tomorrow night I will be teaching in this very room. Anybody wants to come to my business law class dealing with negotiable instruments tomorrow night, come on over. But on behalf of Monmounth University, welcome. How many of you it's the first time on the campus? It's a beautiful campus, isn't it? Yeah. And you came in the daylight barely, so that's good. Well, we hope you come back more, enjoy the facilities. We believe as an academic institution, it's one of our obligations to provide public forums for discourse on important public policy topics, which this clearly is. I took the liberty, since I had a bunch of people coming to visit us, of putting out a one-page handout. If you're interested in learning more about real estate, or you have students, or a family, or friends, or even yourself, we have a wonderful broad variety of courses that we offer. And frankly, one of the topics that I teach in my class on real estate regulation is estate planning. And so this is very interesting for me because I have to change all the stuff that I've been teaching for the last 10 years to deal with the way the new state strategic plan is evolving. So again, on behalf of Monmounth University, thank you for coming, and we appreciate your polite discourse throughout the rest of the evening. And by the way, Professor Scharfenberger is also a professor here on an adjunct basis.
Thank you. And I can't make you class because I have vacation. Just another little factoid. They shot Annie here? They didn't shoot Annie, but they shot Annie here over Wilson Hall. Now, the format for the comment period is very simple, but we like to do this to sort of keep it orderly, keep it moving, and make sure everybody has a chance to speak. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. And we're pretty strict about it because there's a lot of folks who want to speak. And if you go over and then the next guy goes over, the next gal goes over, all of a sudden somebody may get shut out. And we don't want to see that happen. So please keep your comments to 5 minutes. Please keep them only to the state strategic plan. I know there's a lot of issues out there and emotions get high. And we've had folks all over the map with everything, global issues. They're important, but not for this forum. We really want your input here. There's also not going to be any ceding of time. So if you only speak for 3 minutes or 4 minutes, we're going to go on to the next person and keep it orderly that way. And Dan is going to call the names. Typically, we tried this last night. I think it worked out pretty well. He'll call 2 names so you'll be ready to speak. You know you're the next one. We took them, I think, pretty much in the order that they came in. So if you were here early, you're probably going to be up next. So with that, let's get started.
And I'll apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's name. This one is easy, so thank you, Mike Jones. Mike Jones is up first. Yes. All right, what we'll do is we'll put any names that are not in the room, we'll put them aside. And at the end, we'll ensure that anybody who wishes to speak and may want an opportunity, if you hadn't had an opportunity, that we will ensure we get everybody out in the mix. All right, let's stop. Louise Rochette. Who's track? Louise?
She'll be back.
Okay. Number 2. Tammy Meehan.
Tammy Meehan.
Tammy?
I know some of these things might have been said before, but I just want to add my voice to the comments. 6 meetings for a state as densely populated as New Jersey is really not fair to the citizens of New Jersey. With this plan, I think we're going to over-regulate in a state that's already drowning in regulations. It's obvious that the environmental groups are very well represented in this plan, but where are the private property owners represented? This plan has the potential for eminent domain abuse, and that's something we should all be very aware of. Within the plan, when I read it on the internet, I don't know if it's changed, but they keep talking about social justice. I have a bit of a problem with social justice. America is based on equal justice, not social justice. Social justice means different things to different people. But for a lot of people, it means distribution of wealth. And I think what with some definitions, so we know exactly what it is that you're talking about, so we're on the same page. I think this plan will take away control from local governments and put planning for towns in the hands of regional bodies who are not elected and are unaccountable to voters, and that is not the American way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, Reinhardt, is Peter still here? I'm done. You're good, okay. Patrice Humphreys? Beatrice. And Peter is next.
I think one of the things, I hope one of the things that are being changed is the allotment of the low-income housing plans that the towns have to put in so many units, 4,000 units, 3,000 there. I would hope that that is going to be eliminated. You said the towns are going to be involved, not the state, right? You said we're turning it over to municipalities.
That's correct.
And right now, it's the state that is demanding certain things in the town. I don't think it's right.
Thank you.
Charlie's up after Peter.
I was over in Denmark. They have this wonderful agenda over there. I got on the train from one town to the next, and you went by and you didn't see one house. The next station had a big, beautiful apartment. And you went to the next town, and you didn't see a house, big apartment house. And that's what you want to do. And also, I went to Russia, and I had the same thing. And there, they have these big, huge buildings for people to live in. The windows were falling out of the building because they couldn't keep the upkeep on it. And this is what we're entering into. I believe this is where we're going down into. Absolutely.
And Corey Westcote is up after Shelley.
Are we going to get to use the microphones too?
Can everybody hear Shelley?
Yes.
No. Get down on the microphone. Hey, you promise to give it up after 5 minutes?
I promise. In reading the plan, there are some things that are good. There are a few strengths. One is the consolidation of the different government agencies. But as I've said before, there's a lot in the plan that's vague. And having been to several of these meetings and basically been saying the same things, my question is, and I don't expect an answer right now because this is my comment period, is when are we going to see this on the internet? When are we going to see the comments people have already said? If I'm not in here, I don't know what someone else has said. And I don't want to go tread the same water. We only have 5 minutes, my goodness, in 6 meetings. Then every second is precious. So, again, I want to know, and I would like it for the record, if there's a record of this meeting somewhere, I want to know who authorized only 6 meetings, because I don't think that the governor would go back on his resolution like that, nor would Lieutenant Governor Guadagna, who I was expecting to be here. The Development and Redevelopment Plan refers to land use planning that promotes sustainable development principles. Now, to some people, the word sustainable development means something specific. I don't see it defined in the plan anywhere to mean anything else other than what has already been defined in other places, such as J. Gary Lawrence. Participating in a UN advocating planning process would very likely bring out many who would actively work to defeat any elected official undertaking local Agenda 21 sustainable development. So we call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth. Is that what this is? Because without any definitions, that's what it means. That is exactly what's going to happen here, and this is the trap that's being laid for the people of New Jersey. If we don't have better definitions, this is what we're going to come up with, and it's a very real threat. You know, we think that this is some kind of a strange thing that's not happening in our community, but it is. It is. 5 years ago, and this was in 1997, The Rio Summit launched Agenda 21. Since then, 70% of our local authorities have been inspired to think global, act local through Local Agenda 21, but we must do more. I want all local authorities in the UK to adopt Local Agenda 21 strategies by the year 2000. This was someone you never heard of by the name of Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the UK. This is real and it is here, and we must address it in a plan or else we're going to get sucked into this trap. Again, if you look at the plan, putting these goals into action requires certain things. Here's the guiding principles for state decision-making. In spatial efficiency, we see the economic, social, and environmental benefits, okay? This is economy, equity, and environment, the 3 E's of sustainability, as planned, as stated in Agenda 21. The sustainability goal, guiding principle, the state of New Jersey will plan for and respond to current and future challenges and opportunities through adaptive decision-making that accounts for social, economic, and environmental protection and enhancement. Again, the 3 E's, economy, equity, and environment. And if you don't think that that's actually what's going to happen if this was implemented, you just need to look at the UN zone documentation, which will clearly show you this, the 3 E's. So again, I ask you, when are we going to see these terms defined? When will we be able to see them on the internet? Because I'm concerned, I'm hearing other people are concerned. One way to help stop this from happening is, and I'm not sure if anyone suggested this yet, but to implement something called a Property Rights Council. A Property Rights Council is a group of citizens whose mission it is to make sure that no legislation is enacted, no ordinance passed that would tread on our right to property. Our right to property is sacrosanct and is protected in the Constitution. But there's a lot of ways in which those property rights have been tread upon at this point. When you start looking at the amount of law that's been implemented directly in the United States of America, here's a document, it's public domain. Everything I'm showing you is public. There are thousands of laws that have been implemented in the United States of America to implement Agenda 21 and trample all over our rights. This is not just property rights, but it's human rights as well. And
Is it 5 minutes on?
No. Are you keeping the clock, sir?
I am keeping the clock.
Okay. Well, when you talk, I'll interrupt you too. Okay, thank you very much. Last I checked, we have a constitutional right to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Good evening, my name is Corey Wesco, and I'm here on behalf of the New Jersey Builders Association. I'm also the current president of the Shore Builders Association of Central New Jersey, which is a local affiliate of the State Association, which represents hundreds of industry-related companies in Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, and Ocean County. In addition, in my professional capacity, I am the director of land acquisition for Pulte Group, who is a publicly traded national home builder currently developing about 20 neighborhoods here in New Jersey. Now that I've shared with you all my affiliations, I'm sure we'll all be great friends. But seriously, on behalf of both Pulte and the New Jersey Builders, we'd like to applaud the administration for taking on this challenge. The state planning process has been in need of new direction for many years, and we feel strongly that this is an opportunity to streamline past inefficiencies and make New Jersey a state more competitive with our neighbors. It's important that I state now that we are appreciative of the many natural resources that exist here in our state. We believe in the spirit of their preservation, and we support the framework needed to regulate these sensitive areas. With that in mind, we feel the priority growth areas mentioned in this plan need to include planning areas 1 and 2. They need to include areas that are within sewer service areas. They need to include designated centers, transit villages, urban hubs, brownfields, and designated redevelopment areas. The plan also lacks any reference to this constitutional issue of affordable housing. To summarize, this is an exciting endeavor. It's an important opportunity for us all to be a part of guiding our state's trajectory, and we can protect the natural resources that make New Jersey beautiful while creating the smart growth that will stabilize our economy and make us more competitive in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Folks, let me just say one thing. When somebody else is speaking, please give them the courtesy of quiet so you can hear them, as I would expect them to give you. So please, with a murmur, it affects the recording of it, and it affects certainly the speaker. So please respect everybody as they speak, whether they agree with you or not.
Yes.
I thought you said you weren't.
Before you said the word.
You have a assistant manager?
We're not hiding anything. It's right here. We're recording.
Before you said we weren't recording.
We're not recording video. Somebody asked about a video to be posted.
No, they said we're recording.
Let's go on.
And I'm in charge of keeping time, so if anyone goes over, you can blame me for not keeping the time,
We
okay?
got a clock right there.
All right, you got a clock there too, but let us keep this orderly, thank you. And two people that we called on early that we had signed up early, Mike Jones and Luis Urshak, were not in the room. Maybe give them a call out if they're in here. Okay, we're gonna wait till the end now. Luis? Okay.
I just simply, among other things, have a question that spins off of the question that I asked earlier, and that is, how do you plan to limit growth in non-growth areas, and what assurances do we have? And the case in point that I'm really thinking of is something which impacts this Wind River Reservoir here in Monmouth County. And I'm wondering, since the DEP is now pushing for Homedale to extend sewers into the former Bell Labs area and also potentially up to the PNC Art Center area, you know, this would just mean less recharge and more runoff ending up in the Wind River Reservoir, which already has too little recharge for the base flow of streams and too much runoff to it. So there are now complete islands with mature vegetation on it in that reservoir that were not there 20 years ago. Partly this is also from stream corridor erosion that would end up there, but also from further upstream soil destabilization or development. So I see what you're saying this evening, but I do not see how you square that with what the DEP is now basically pushing in this town, and that is a situation that basically affects all of northern Monmouth County, because since we are critical area #1 for water supply in New Jersey since the early 90s, and that has meant that all water companies have to reduce the amount they take from their deep wells and the aquifers, and have to go instead and take 50% of their water supply essentially from surface water. So it means the Shorelands, which serves Hazlet and some of the Bay Shore, and northern Homedale, also is taking water from that reservoir. And I live in Shrewsbury, that's my water also, all the way down to probably Long Branch at this point in time. And then coming up, they might serve the southern half of Monmouth County basically from the other reservoirs from the Manasquan. But I don't see where you're focused on really affording protection. And economic development is fine, but it's going to be completely sabotaged if we ruin our water supply. That is absolutely critical. We can't lead healthy lives if we don't have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. It's just very basic and very simple.
Thank you.
Somebody log in as Judy. Okay. Mark?
Okay. Thank you. I think given the crowded circumstances, I will step a little to one side, but I won't walk all the way down. Unless, can your recording catch me accurately? Otherwise, I will come down and take the mic.
Mark, I would say you're coming through loud.
Okay. The plan talks about walkable communities, vibrant downtowns, and so forth. I'd like to consider a little bit about that. My early years were spent in Queens Village, New York. This was a walkable community. Women walked to the supermarket 3, 4, or 5 times a week because they couldn't bring a whole week of groceries home in a hand-pulled cart. Or they made one trip a week by automobile in the evening with their husbands and children. And by the way, Queens, Brooklyn, they're the ultimate transit village. Why build another one here? The modern supermarket has to be big. Economy of scale keeps prices low and selections large. You cannot make that walkable, and you cannot put a week of groceries on a bicycle. Look around New Jersey for places where the downtowns are vibrant. These business districts have specialty stores, boutiques, florists, restaurants, salons that draw customers from a wide area, a non-walkable area. And they have parking for their customers who must come by automobile. In the best of them, the parking is off-street, typically behind the commercial blocks. Madison comes to mind. Teaneck has parking behind Cedar Lane. Long Branch also, although I'm not so familiar with that anymore. A better example, I know this is getting a little away, may be found in New York State, where Mount Kisco has 3 shopping streets surrounding a large parking area. It's quite attractive. It is, in a sense, an open mall turned inside out, a downtown surrounding a parking area. A different model is found 2 towns to the south, Pleasantville, where geography allows railroad and parkway to be out of sight in cuts. Pedestrians and vehicles flow easily. There's parking between stores, behind stores, angled parking on the streets. It doesn't work quite as well as it used to before the Arts Theater moved in, but it still works. There are ways to do this, to make it work. Now, let's consider Matawan, the downtown that I'm familiar with. There are a number of closed businesses on Main Street. One of them is a commercial building that was once a small supermarket. Without economy of scale, it could not survive. Since then, a hardware chain, a paint chain, another supermarket have tried to make the location work. They have all failed. Matawan has now accepted a mixed-use proposal. The new building will be 3 floors of apartments above 1 commercial floor, 39 dwellings. The building will be twice the height of the surrounding buildings and will require 3 basement levels for parking. And there are still questions. How much business will those 39 dwellings provide the local businesses? Will there be 39 customers visits per day as a result? It seems unlikely to me. Downtown Matawan has a parking problem. It's not that there is no parking, it's that the parking does not feel convenient to the stores. The stores are on both sides of Main Street. The municipal parking is on the east side, not convenient to traffic in neighborhoods to the west. The most successful businesses have their own parking off the thoroughfare. The downtown is walkable, but not accessible to customers who might choose to come by motor vehicle. Which brings us back to that building scheduled for redevelopment. The site has an alley to the side and one in the back, which gives it access to both Main Street and a major access road from the west. If they decided to turn it into parking, the borough would lose taxes from the site, but the downtown businesses might easily see several hundred more customer visits per day. By the borough meeting the needs of the customers might be brought in, meeting the needs of businesses which would then thrive instead of just surviving. The whole approach of mixed use and walkable communities is flawed outside the big cities. Walkable, as used in this document, means inaccessible. It flies in the face of the principles of economics.
Mark, you have to wrap up.
Economy of scale, wide customer base for a larger market, and lower transaction costs. It is a step back, it is unpopular, it is a deeply flawed mistake. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mark.
David Fisher's up next, followed by Amy Goldsmith.
My name is David Fisher, and I'm actually a former member of the State Planning Commission. I'm a licensed professional planner, but I've worked most of my career in the development business. So I was appointed as someone who's got a planning background and a land use background, just for those people who would ask before what type of people get appointed to the commission. There were a few environmental representatives on the commission as public members back when I was on it, between 2000 and 2005. So, but anyway, my experience with the state plan was obviously direct in that I was a member of the commission when they adopted the last version in 2001. I was the only member of the commission that didn't vote for adoption of that plan. I was outnumbered and the plan was adopted, but there were some things that I didn't like about the last version of the plan, and ways in which I felt that it could be improved. And so I'm here just to comment in a brief way on this one, recognizing that the power went out in my office when the PSE&G substation blew up in Edison today. I lost all my notes, so it's just a few things I wrote down. Anyway, the legislative mandate, and someone talked about the act before, is pretty specific. There are 8 of them in the law. And the first one really kind of sums it up, where it says that the legislature finds and declares that the state requires sound and integrated statewide planning and coordination with local and regional planning to conserve natural resources, number 1, to revitalize urban centers, 2, number 3, to protect the quality of its environment, and 4, provide needed housing and adequate public services like infrastructure at a reasonable cost, by the way, while promoting beneficial economic growth, development, and renewal. And that's a very broad mandate, but yet the State Planning Commission, and I guess in this new version of the state plan, has to come up with a way to meet all of those goals. And that's what I think they're trying to express in this plan. I like things in this new plan for a few reasons. One, it's brief. It's less than 50 pages, and there are very few government documents that come out that brief when you're talking about a plan for the entire state. The prior plan was 360 pages, and in many ways didn't accomplish much because it wasn't well implemented. So the commission has to work with, once it adopts this new plan, local government and county government to see if they can kind of get on the same page with each other. The other thing I like about this plan is it talks about making state agencies accountable for each other, to kind of make sure that they're on the same page with whatever this new state plan becomes. And that's real important for the business community and selfishly, developers in particular, because we often come up against permits that we need to secure from different state agencies that one agency says yes, another agency says no on the same site, and they can't make up their mind whether or not the development makes sense, or whether or not the resource needs to be protected different ways. The 4 primary goals in the plan, the draft plan, I like. I think it's pretty self-explanatory and creates a good foundation for a plan that can use criteria to identify new growth areas. Many of the growth areas are identified, and I think they make sense, but I think one of the things the commission should focus on is coming up with criteria that tries to achieve the better use of land relative to employment and housing. Oftentimes we've got houses in the wrong place relative to how close they live to where they work. And it's not that, all of us can live close to where we work. We have cars and highways, and that's how we've developed in this state, and it's a very diverse state for that reason. And as was mentioned before, every local government has the power to zone and plan, and therefore, towns will come up with their zoning plans. I'm just hopeful that a new state plan can try to encourage new land use decisions to be made where, more often than not, housing can be close to where jobs are. Urban revitalization is something our company's done for almost 20 years, and we were one of the proponents of it going back to Newark over 20 years ago. But it's difficult and it's expensive, and we can't expect that New Jersey will grow just in the urban areas and in our towns. We need opportunities in the more suburban and rural parts of the state as well, otherwise I think we will be very destructive to our economic systems. And I've got some other suggestions, but I'll put them in writing and I'd be happy to forward them to the commission.
Thank you, Dave. Great.
Amy, and then Anthony Cooper.
Hello, my name is Amy. I'm the State Director of the New Jersey Environmental Federation. I'm also a longtime resident of Monmouth County and Red Bank, specifically raised my family. I wanted to say that while the plan has some laudable goals in it in terms of directing economic investment in the right places, and that the desire for coordinating greater efficiency are good, and given the limited resources that we all have in our towns and in the state, we want to use every property tax dollar wisely and efficiently. But regardless of anyone's position in the room, we don't believe, I don't believe that the criteria are defined well enough. The public input is guaranteed throughout the process. Some others have stated, but the devil's in the details, and it's going to be buried in the agency processes down the road. And so we are concerned about maybe different issues than other people in the room, but there's still the concern of transparency is important, and our concerns revolve around the environmental issues, the redevelopment. We think the state should have an economic redevelopment plan, but the state plan may not be the right vehicle. If you want to invest in industry, then have an economic, industry investment plan. You don't need to use the state plan to do that. If you want to grow in the right places, then the state plan should work to do that. But you want to attract and grow future and right industries in the state, we would say we would want to have more green industries. We would want to have more research and development. We would want to have partnerships with the intellectual capacity that we have, the universities that we have here. The state plan is, as you're proposing it, would focus on industries that exist. And yet, maybe those aren't the right industries for the future of New Jersey. If we are the largest solar installing state after California, then we should be building our solar panels here in the state. We should be doing the R&D here in the state as we did in the past. We were the state that invented the catalytic converter. We can do that kind of inventing again. We could be doing that kind of manufacturing. So we don't think that this economic plan really addresses the economic needs or the investigations and investment that needs to be done. And so the other issue that I'd like to say is that because there's a lack of specificity, that there's an opportunity for mischief. We don't want that kind of mischief, and in our view, the mischief is that the environment and our communities and the vibrancy of our communities would not be protected in the ways that we would want to see. We are very concerned, I'm very concerned, knowing as much as I do know about drinking water and about questions about our wastewater. I'm very concerned that we're not going to have the water that we need for our industries and for our families to drink and to use. We have lots of food industries here, Goya, Anheuser-Busch, lots of them depend on good, clean water. That's why we protected the highlands, was for those industries as well as other things that we do, including the people who live here. So in closing, I'd like to say that I'm very concerned, for Monmouth County, which I think has done a pretty good job in some places in protecting its parks and protecting lands, but in other ways it hasn't done as good a job. And I'm concerned that the statutory intent of the State Planning Act must be adhered to, and it has to, whatever this plan is, has to last and go beyond the particular administration. This administration might have the best intentions, but it has to last beyond this administration. So specificity would better ensure that it lasts over time.
Thank you, Amy.
After Anthony.
I'm Anthony Cooper. I live in Homedale. I have 3 comments. First, under this state draft plan, Goal 3, preservation and enhancement of critical state resources, I believe some additional attention should be paid in New Jersey, New Jersey's existing low-growth areas, which are currently built to capacity with a mix of large lot residential development and preserved open space. The 2 things that I would like to have done under this area. First, some text should be added under the draft plan Goal 3 to the effect that use of large lot residential development, sometimes with the clustering provisions, has effectively preserved New Jersey's critical resources at very little cost to the state's taxpayers, and this should be encouraged and continued. The second point is that while the existing text in the draft plan, page 33, properly discourages high-cost infrastructure extensions in preservation-oriented low-growth areas, some additional text seems needed to clarify the state's investment that is appropriate for major infrastructure repairs in these areas, as, for example, when dealing with the bridge failure. In other words, a preservation-oriented low-growth area should not be allowed to degenerate into a depressed area because of inadequate funds for repairing major infrastructure events. My second comment, this draft plan is currently missing any specific treatment about protecting environmentally critical areas, which are identified in the State Planning Act as wetlands, floodplains, stream corridors, aquifer recharge areas, steep slopes, areas of unique flora and fauna, and areas of scenic, historic, cultural, or recreational value. So, end of quote. I believe that the draft plan goal 3 should at least cite the need to generate suitable objectives for protecting these environmentally critical areas. This will take a lot of work to cite that, but that's the objectives, doesn't pile up unfortunately. But please do not ignore that. My third comment, this draft plan appears to lack any input from municipalities. Indeed, I understand that the criteria to be used in identifying the areas for economic growth and the areas for preservation and protection were released on February the 10th. That's just 3 days before the first public hearing on this draft final state strategic plan for New Jersey's state development and redevelopment. Now, municipalities just can't react that fast. Let me just go on to say that the state's done a pretty poor job in my opinion of listening to municipalities. I point to last year's extremely heavy-handed action by the Department of Environmental Protection and expanding sewer service areas in Homedale into environmentally sensitive planning area 5. So talking about the satellite issue that Mr. Kennedy brought up earlier, this is an example of where the state DEP really was flatly contradicting what had been done in the really operative state plan that we currently have. And to end on a positive note, since I know we have a lot of representatives from the state here, I say that in my over 40 years living in New Jersey, this 2% cap on budget increases that the governor has put into place is the best thing I've ever seen the state do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vincent, and then following Vincent is Leslie Conrad.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Vincent Domitian, and I'm here this evening in my capacity as chairman of the Monmouth County Planning Board. At the February 21st meeting of the Planning Board, the main topic of discussion was the state plan. And at the end of that meeting, the following statement was authorized. It will be sent to you in the form of a letter, but I would like to read it into the record this evening. The Monmouth County Planning Board appreciates the opportunity to comment on the proposed state strategic plan, New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. We think that this version of the plan is an improvement from the previous iterations of past plans because it is concise, allows more flexibility, and acknowledges the importance of regional planning. The board offers the following comments that we believe will strengthen the plan even further. New wording is needed to emphasize the County Planning Board's role in the process. It is important that wording get inserted in the state strategic plan that indicates that those county planning boards that desire to are encouraged and authorized to take a major role in the state strategic planning process. The Monmouth County Planning Board wants to be an active participant in the planning process to ensure that Monmouth's regional strategic plan that will be developed as part of this undertaking becomes a component of the overall state strategic plan. The Planning Board is willing to do the necessary mapping, build on existing regional and county plans and initiatives, and to do the necessary outreach work to other county departments, municipalities, and other stakeholders. County should be given the opportunity to participate in development of the scorecard. The scorecard is the key instrument that will be used to allocate state funding. Since the counties in our state are so diverse, it is necessary that all counties have a chance to be part of the discussions to arrive at a scorecard and have the ability to comment on the scorecard before it is finalized. This will ensure that an equitable scorecard is created that provides each county with opportunities to receive funding for appropriate and needed projects. We are concerned that if the scorecard is not set up fairly, funding might be directed to cities and the denser northern counties, leaving the other areas of the state with serious infrastructure and other problems. Goals, objectives, and strategies should be developed for those portions of the state that are neither priority growth areas or preservation areas. Right now, the state strategic plan has goals, objectives, and strategies to develop priority growth areas and to preserve and enhance critical state resources. The plan is currently silent on how to address the remaining areas of the state. However, the State Planning Commission's draft State Strategic Plan Advance Notice of Rules Priority Investment Area criteria defines these areas as either alternate growth investment areas or limited growth investment areas, and offers a very limited discussion about these areas. Additional goals and policies should be added to the State Strategic Plan to provide guidance for these areas. It is unclear about if and how these areas will qualify for funding. Counties' work on regional strategic plans as part of the state planning process should be folded into the regional plan for sustainable development. A regional plan for sustainable development plan is underway for the 13 counties, including Monmouth, that are members of the North Jersey Transportation Authority region. We are asking that the State Planning Commission and Office of Planning Advocacy advocate for the work that these counties are doing, are undertaking as part of the state strategic plan process, and the regional plan for sustainable development initiative be designed in a way that the products are compatible with and easily and seamlessly incorporated into one another. This recommendation supports the state's strategic plan's message that, quote, vertical coordination is imperative for success, unquote. Finally, a glossary would be a helpful addition to the plan. A glossary defining key terms in the state strategic plan would help the general public to better understand the concepts described in the plan. If you have any questions about the comments or would like to discuss them further, please contact Assistant Planning Director Bonnie Goldschlag to our office, and we have the contact information included. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vince. Thanks. Leslie Conrad and Harold Balmer is after Leslie.
I'm a citizen of New Jersey, and I'm just here by myself, and I'm not a college speaker, so you have to forgive me. But I've heard about this, looked at it a little bit, and listened to all people's comments here. You say that this agenda was first brought forth in 1920, and now all of a sudden they're bringing this thing forward. Maybe we should have let it be gone in the 1940s, but it's here again. And the first thing I have to say is there seems to be a heavy emphasis on environmentalism. And my fear is that environmentalist movement has been taken over by extreme radical elements of this political spectrum. And these radical environmentalists are not interested in preserving the environment. They're interested in destroying the free enterprise system. And anything that they do is ultimately going to destroy jobs in New Jersey. And knowing that New Jersey is number 50 on the lowest business acceptable welcoming state in the union is just going to make it even worse. As far as planning of the city or usage, I strongly believe that it is best done by local governments, not by out-of-state or people in Trenton, some bureaucrat who we have no idea, who has no, doesn't live in my town, and doesn't know what it's like, and that scares me. I'm also afraid that this opens up. Now, everybody must be aware of the event that happened in Connecticut, where a city took over people's homes, threw them out, destroyed their homes, turned it over to a private developer. The developer said, no, we ain't got the money, and today that field is a vacant lot. I'm afraid that this type of provision will allow the government to take people's homes away because they don't see fit, or they feel they can do better with it. That's like one of my problems. Also, it seems to be, since we're going to have people, and let me tell you something, folks, I consider the state legislatures, and forgive me for saying this, are nothing but a bunch of pimps. And if we allow them to lead it, and together with these special interest groups, they're going to crush us. They're going to crush us like a bug, and they don't give a damn about it. Another thing, I heard the gentleman over here say there's a constitutional right to affordable housing.
I'd like to ask that gentleman, what article of the Constitution guarantees?
Country.
Huh?
Thanks, one at a time, okay?
Even if you did, what about the Mount Holly decision? You said earlier that the cities, municipalities will decide on the amount of affordable housing or low-income housing. Mount Holly decision is going to override anything the municipality or the state thinks they're going to do. Also, the woman talked about solar panels. I have to laugh. So Linder went out of business. Every solar panel, there were people, every time I speak to somebody who installs solar panels, they tell me that it'll take years and years to get your money back before you start making money or saving money on your electrical bill. The solar panel stupidity is a dead herring. It's just made by environmentalists. Lastly, I'd just like to say that this idea, from what I've gathered from this gentleman, Peter, I believe is Peter, when he's saying, I get the idea that you're going to take people and put them away in small little areas. Hubs,
Yeah.
silos, hubs, yeah. What happens if I have a job in, say, Allentown, and I live in New Jersey, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and there's no link going there? What am I going to do? Nothing? Quit my job? What happens also, if you remember previous history, the spread of disease in small local communities during the Middle Ages, because people crowded together and disease just ran rampant through the towns and villages and killed a third of the population of Europe. Is that what we're going to put ourselves up to also? Again? I don't know. I hope not. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Followed by Lucy Vandenberg.
Hi,
Carol.
Carol Balmer, and I live in Homedale. At one time, I was a representative from our township to the State Development Redevelopment Plan. At that time, we had Planning Area 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There was some kind of consistency and...
Does she need the microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I won't have to charge you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. At one time, I was representative from our town to the State Development Redevelopment Plan when this all started back in the 90s, I believe it was, and maybe even late 80s. And at that time, we had planning area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The intent, as I understood the state plan at that time, was to gear development towards areas that had infrastructure. And the premise at that time was that the more you expand infrastructure, the more taxes the taxpayer is going to have to pay for it. And yes, townships, like this gentleman was just speaking about, hubs like Jersey City or Elizabeth or any highly populated area, have infrastructure to handle that area and the population. So you're not putting them in a tenement, or you're not putting them in a little tiny box and just leaving them there. The infrastructure is there to support them. And the State Development Redevelopment Plan way back then was to gear populations and growth to where the infrastructure already existed. When now expanding infrastructure to other areas can be very expensive to everybody, including the taxpayers, okay? My problem with the state plan, as I see it right now, is it's going away from its original intent to gear development to where services now exist. It creates more urban sprawl. And that urban sprawl, unfortunately, this gentleman doesn't agree with me, but unfortunately, I think our environment is our best key to the economic recovery in this state. Without clean air, without clean water, nobody wants to build here. You have countries all over the world that do not have clean water, do not have clean air. Mostly clean water is their concern. People do not invest there. They may invest in the oil wells offshore, but they don't invest in the people or the country or the resources or the research and development because they do not have the resources to sustain that development. And that's what it should be about, sustainability. And I'm going to go back again to the Homedale issue at hand, which I feel is statewide, and that's the Manasquan River Reservoir has been exempt from the sewer service extension areas. Our DEP is forcing sewers down our throat. I was the one that voted for the sole source sewer line from Lucent Laboratory facility. It was only for that facility. It was not for the 400 surrounding acres. It was not for PNC Bank, it was not for the rest of the watershed, which would require more infrastructure, more runoff, more sedimentation to a reservoir. In the year 2020, we're going to have a water situation in the state. We do not have enough sustainable quality and quantity drinking water in the state. And for the state to be short-sighted about our watersheds and our resources that feed those watersheds is an enormous mistake that we'll be paying, our children and our grandchildren will be paying for. And it has nothing to do with being economic recovery, it has to do with long-term livability in New Jersey. Thank you.
Maybe Lucy can give the mic back there, and John, comments? Is after Lucy?
Oh, I'm sorry. John.
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present comments on the draft state strategic plan. I'm Lucy Vandenberg, the Executive Director of Plan Smart New Jersey, a statewide independent nonprofit planning and research organization with over 40 years commitment to strengthening communities and improving people's lives through the advancement of sound land use planning and regional cooperation. I am here tonight in support of the state strategic plan and in support of regional planning in New Jersey generally. Why is regional planning important? Rather than constricting our freedom of choice as citizens, planning expands our freedom of choice. Through good planning, we can achieve a brighter future than we could without it. Through sound planning, we can attract new businesses and workers to New Jersey. We can create communities that are attractive to the workforce, communities that provide private sector housing near jobs, so that families can spend more time at home and less time in traffic. Rather than being forced to sit in ever more unpredictable traffic jams, we can have transportation options that include taking the train or bus, riding a bike, or walking. Any comments? I'm not going to take that against my time when people are talking. Thank you. Rather than polluted air and water, we can achieve better air and water quality through sound planning, development, and investment decisions. Rather than development of all our remaining open spaces, we can strategically preserve open space and farmland while developing our centers. Rather than building only single-family homes on large lots, we can have a variety of housing choices near our work that suit our lifestyles and our budgets. Planning is about creating choices and opportunity. As a lifelong resident of New Jersey, I understand the importance of strong, connected communities, a variety of housing options, and a functional transportation system. I grew up in a traditional walkable town in New Jersey with local shops and a train station that provides quick access to New York City. Growing up, my family could drive, but they could also walk to town or take the train. Children had the independence made possible by walkable, compact, safe communities. Our community had housing affordable to very well-off families and housing affordable to those with limited incomes. This diversity of incomes and backgrounds serve to strengthen, not weaken, our community. We should invest in places like these with existing infrastructure, and we should support job creation in our urban and town centers. If we were to stop investment in infrastructure and sound planning, our roads would crumble, become so congested that they're no longer functional, and our air quality would degrade, harming human health. People would be forced to live ever farther from work and spend less and less time with their families. This is not the future we should strive toward. With strategic infrastructure investment, we can make an efficient use of limited government resources while maximizing private sector investments. We can support business formation and expansion, foster innovation, and create compact, livable, and diverse communities.
Come on, give us a break.
We heard this. She don't just like everybody else.
Let her speak. She let everybody else.
She listened to you. You should shut up and listen to everybody else.
Folks, you gotta be quiet when somebody else is speaking, okay? Everybody will get a chance.
I'll wrap up. These are the goals that the state strategic plan also seeks to achieve.
Talking to me, sir?
The state plan recognizes the
Ma'am, we can't have this.
Wait a minute, he started, he attacked her.
Listen,
He attacked her.
okay, whoever has to, please, let's quiet and let Vincent finish.
The state plan recognizes the key role that the economy has to play in planning. It introduces the concept of industry clusters for New Jersey, which we have long advocated and has served as a national model elsewhere. The plan proposes a criteria-based system to identify where growth should occur and where conservation should take place. We support this process and encourage the state to be transparent about where it encourages growth and seeks to support natural resource conservation. The plan calls for a long-term funding source for open space preservation. As one of the most densely populated states in the nation, this priority is essential to our continued high quality of life. These are provisions that are important to New Jersey's future. Without a strong state plan, growth will occur haphazardly, limiting freedoms for our citizens. We thank you for your leadership in these areas and for your thoughtful inclusion of these principles. Thank you for allowing me to finish.
Thank you, Lisa.
John commented that Paul, please, after that.
Folks, one thing. Let's stop right here and start from scratch. We can't have the murmuring when folks are talking. The passion is good, but the interruptions are bad. We're trying to make this a constructive meeting. You're going to have a diversity of opinions. That's the world around. We have to respect each other and let everybody speak as they are letting you speak.
My name's John Cummins. I'm from Atlantic Highlands. I was looking at the plan, thinking about economic development. Was just a little bit curious. We spent lots of money on planning. We spent lots of money on regulation. We've got lots of money and lots of nonprofit groups trying to steer things. We've got lots of money going to developers. We got lots of money coming out of taxpayers' pockets. And I'm really not seeing the economic growth. I was wondering, why don't we slow down the spending on planning by some central body that's spending no business whatsoever telling the taxpayers how they should spend their money, what they should do. It's not their job. Show me in the Constitution where it says, show me in the Constitution where it says the state will tell the people what to do. I didn't see that. I read the state constitution. I can't see the state running things. I beg your pardon, but get off our back. We're spending money on education using state ideas. And it's not working. The state idea of education is not the educators in the classroom's idea of education.
John, please stick to the plan, okay?
Okay?
Okay.
You guys are messing up by planning economic development. It's going to do the same thing it does when you plan education. You're going to steer the money's going to go where you tell it to go, and we're going to get what we get.
We're not stakeholders.
Right? We're not happy about that. Why don't you let us spend our money where it needs to be spent for us to get what we need, so we can have our clean water, so we can have our clean streets, so we can get our streets fixed. I mean, if you guys can help, that would be great. But telling us what to do isn't help. We know what to do. We're people. I mean, is anybody else a human being in this room? Does anybody else know what they need? Know what they want? You need somebody to plan it for you? I mean, it's a great idea, but, well, maybe it's not such a great idea. I don't know. Where did this idea come from anyway? Was it from a communist nation that wanted to have America be just like them? I think that's where it comes from. Check it out.
Dan, who's the first?
Paul Weeks.
Thank you. My name is Paul Gleason. I'm the Central New Jersey representative of the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm also a practicing professional planner in the state of New Jersey. And on behalf of the New Jersey chapter of the APA, I'd like to offer some comments. Again, for some other comments, we are very delighted the administration has taken on the state planning process. It's a process that, like dormant for way too long, very important to the future development of the state. And we're glad to see this process started up again. At the same time, we believe that, as we mentioned in October, that this is really a plan for a plan. The goal, the guiding principles, they outline a good approach to a future planning process, but we still think there's a lot more work to be done in terms of balancing economic development goals and in the context of the broad statutory mandates of the State Planning Act. So we think at this time it would be premature to adopt the plan in its current form, and we think that there's a lot more input that needs to be gathered from around the state. We believe that the strength and assets assessment is well done and focused. However, additional review and input from the public may reveal additional assets. We believe that this state strategic plan process has not received the same level of local review envisioned by the original process. While we're not advocating a resuscitation of that prior process, we do believe that there's a lot more input that should come from the local level. We also believe that that input should be that the counties, and we're glad to see there's some emphasis on the county and regional planning, that these counties can step up and have a much bigger role in this process, like they were envisioned in the cross-section process, but that was never really realized. And this plan does warrant a very high level of public scrutiny. You're hearing it tonight, but we think that all sides should be heard from throughout the entire community. We also think we need to have more public participation processes, summaries of work products, common opportunities, all these things shed better sunlight, I think, to the entire process. And again, we think that there's a huge shift in the framework of the state planning process. So we think we need, if there's such a large shift in this process, we really should have the ability to have more comment and provide more input into this process. And let's see, the changing realities assessment, while it's accurate, it's not necessarily a reason to abandon or shortcut a comprehensive state plan process. We agree with the findings of that process, but it doesn't mean we should just abandon a comprehensive state planning process. We understand you have some timeline constraints, but again, we think maybe this should be an opportunity to identify a better process moving forward. The Garden State values identified in the plan are excellent goals for these growth investment areas, but again, the trick's going to be how do we effectively identify these growth investment areas? The guiding principles and goals are very laudable, but they really need to be linked to places. They need to be linked to incentives, and they need to be linked to state support. There needs to be some predictability. If I'm a property owner, if I'm a developer, if I'm a municipality, I don't want to have some sort of checklist to see maybe I qualify as a growth area or a non-growth area or a preservation area. We understand the need to move away from a state plan map that never got adopted, that had its problems. But at the end of the day, if you want predictability, if you want people to understand the process, there has to be some way to identify those. We think property taxes remain a key issue. Only in New Jersey are school children screamed about at planning board meetings. There needs to be a real way to kind of rethink. We know the governor's working on this issue. We need to have refocused effect on this issue. As long as we have a property tax issue, we have an ability to do sound land use planning, because we're always going to be trying to minimize school-age children, and we're always going to be trying to maximize short-term rateable growth. So we think there's no mention of affordable housing in the plan. It's at your risk. COA has gone away as a process, but the federal decision still stands. The Supreme Court is still around, and you're going to need to provide additional tools for municipalities to deal with that issue.
Great, thank you very much.
And Suzanne, She is up after Bobby.
I'll take it. You're getting a little close. I have no position or credentials whatsoever other than the fact that I'm a lifelong New Jersey resident, property owner, taxpayer, and I have lived in this state long enough to see a lot of changes take place, some of them good, some of them not so good. I have managed to get through this New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. I won't claim to understand everything that's in here, but I will make some comments on it. The plan is obviously ambiguous. It's very, very strong on flowery language and inferred benefits, and very short on specifics as to how the plan will deal with various problems in New Jersey. In short, it appeals to me as a sales tool for centralized planning for the state. We have a lot of experience with centralized planning in New Jersey. We can take a look at some of our major cities, which have been experimenting with centralized planning for generations. Patterson, Elizabeth, Perth Amboy, Camden, Trenton come to mind. I don't think we can point to those cities with and show much success in centralized planning in their environments. Downtowns that are unwalkable because they're unsafe, parking that is inadequate, population that exceeds the ability of the city to deal with them, to educate them. This is a decidedly un-American approach to handling our problems. We have done it. We have done it throughout our history with individual effort, entrepreneurial spirit, and a penchant for solving problems by approaching it from different directions. We have ample evidence in our own state and in our national government of the failure of centralized planning projects. New Jersey spends 10 times the national average to build or repair 1 mile of road. We pay for it. New Jersey has some of the highest cost per student of education in the United States, and our test scores are dropping annually. The town I come from, Monroe Township, was at one time, when my son attended school there, considered to be one of the premier education towns in Middlesex County. It does not enjoy that anymore. However, we spend roughly twice to 2.5 times what we spent on education when my son was in the school system. There is a mention in the plan of the need to repurpose and redevelop existing developed properties. This, to me, gives the state or even the county the ability to do with properties what they see as being appropriate. This degrades personal property rights. We already have property rights under stress in this state from abusive municipal bonding issues, where the taxpayer property owner is the payer of last resort in the event of default. Your property rights have been diminished because the courts can force you to pay for what your elected officials have chosen to borrow under bond. There's no doubt we need some rules, some regulations, and we do need some concept of how we want our state to progress. This does not seem to provide any of those things, and it leaves a lot of things open-ended and a tremendous opportunity for abuse.
Suzanne and then Tony DiVici. Up next.
Good evening, I'm Suzanne Ishii. I am the chair of the Board of Artsville Community Rutgers University. I am going to read a letter for the record, which we will be submitting in full to the OPA. I will read a portion of the letter, and in addition to this letter, there are 9 recommendations of specific language which we strongly encourage the OPA to consider inserting into the state's final plan. On behalf of Arts-Built Communities, I want to thank you for providing us the opportunity to share with you our ideas on how the arts in New Jersey support and promote the goals and objectives outlined in the state strategic plan. Before I begin, I would like to tell you a little more about the organization I represent. Arts-Built Communities of Rutgers University provides expertise on how arts connect community and economic development. Arts-Built Communities helps New Jersey communities and arts-related organizations make better and more cost-effective decisions about community and economic development related to creative industries. We do this through several programs, including continuing education and asset-based creative placemaking, community coaching and leadership development, as well as develop community toolkits and academic research on the relationship between arts, economic, and community development. As prescribed in Objective 1.4 of the state's draft strategic plan, ABC is looking forward to forging an effective partnership with the Office of Planning Advocacy to help advance the mission of the state plan. It is critical that OPA understand the importance and influence that the arts have on the state's economy, community development, downtown revitalization, the retention of creative capital in New Jersey, and the overall quality of life for our residents. As such, the state's strategic plan needs to formally acknowledge and recognize the cultural, economic, and social value the arts provide in creating vibrant, high-quality communities and regions that make our state a much sought-after and desirable place to live. New Jersey is in competition with every other state in the nation when it comes to retaining and attracting high-value jobs. The relocation of business out of state results in the loss of jobs and the outward migration of our productive and creative workforce that threatens our ability to sustain the high quality of life we have come to expect. Tracy McDaniel, Executive Director of Choose New Jersey, relayed a story at this year's League of Municipalities Conference. When she was working in Houston, she tried to attract Boeing, but was defeated when Boeing chose Chicago because of its arts district, which greatly added to its quality of life. Investment in our arts and cultural institutions is a fundamental necessity if we are to attract and retain a creative class of employees and businesses, including those prosperous industrial clusters already identified in the SSP. Market research shows that travelers in the U.S. are increasingly seeking meaningful and distinctive experiences, and destination marketing is being tailored to their interests. A growing number of special interest travelers rank the arts, heritage, and other cultural activities as one of the top 5 reasons for selecting a particular destination. We also know that the tourist who visits for cultural reasons stays longer, spends more money, and returns more often than the average tourist. In New Brunswick, the tourist attending an event spends an average of $29 over the ticket price in the local economy. In 2010, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, in conjunction with Gallup, published this survey-based report entitled Soul of the Community. This report was conducted in 26 cities over a 3-year period to help determine what attaches people to a community and what makes them want to put down roots and build a life there. In the survey, communities, social offerings, openness, aesthetics, and education are most likely to influence residents' attachment to their communities. The report finds that residents are particularly positive about the availability of arts and cultural opportunities and social community events. These factors rank even higher than jobs, safety, and the economy as the reason why people choose where they live. Interestingly enough, the study also shows that the communities with the highest levels of attachment have the highest rates of gross domestic product growth. New Jersey must publicly proclaim its rightful place as a cultural juggernaut if we want to offer businesses a reason to locate here and give our residents another reason to stay. As of January 2011, New Jersey is home to 21,523 arts-related businesses. New Jersey is one of the 10 top states with the greatest number of arts businesses and employ 134,103 people. The creative industries account for 4.2% of the 511,995 total businesses located in New Jersey and 1.98% of the 4,076,471 total people they employ. Thank you very much.
Thank
The
you.
rest of this will be submitted in the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Tony is up next, followed by Richard Zappo.
Yeah, I'm Tony Di Lodovico, and I'm president of my own environmental permitting company. I'm also a consultant to Birdsville Services Group, and I'm on the State Soil Conservation Committee. I'm on the Ocean County Soil Conservation District Board. I'm on the New Jersey Builders Board. I deal with everybody. I've dealt with towns, municipalities, counties, and I basically deal with environmental planning, permitting. I just wanted to say it's interesting to see the diversity in the opinions and the strong opinions of the various people in the room. And that's the problem with dealing with the state plan. The state plan and the planning process in New Jersey has morphed into a regulatory process, and everybody that wants to stop something uses a plan or regulation to do that, and everybody that wants to do something tries to counter that. So my encouragement to the state plan, because I think you do need plans. I don't think you can just have everybody do whatever they want. You need some type of a plan, but the planning process has to stay a planning process and not a regulatory process. You can't impose on people how to live and where to live. You have to identify regions, what type of, what the environment is in those regions, what the natural resources are in those regions, what the infrastructure is, everything that is articulated in the plan, you have to identify. And then you can, on a state level, try to prioritize where you think you should put your investments, but you can't have a plan that then prohibits this, or says you can't do this, or you can't do that. You need to make sure you have a planning document that's a framework for then to have the local communities, the local businesses, local environmental groups to decide, okay, this is what we can do in this community. And someone that deals with environmental engineering, I come from the bent that everything has an impact. So you can't say because it has an impact, you can't do it. I come from, has an impact, how do we cost effectively mitigate that impact and still have an economic state that protects the environment and protects all the other interests at the same time. So I would encourage the State Planning Commission to finalize a plan that is a frame and a guidework on how we're going to move forward in the future, but to not dictate where we can and can't do.
Thank you.
Richard? John Richard Zappo from Woodbridge. I'm approaching this more from a emotional standpoint. I don't believe that we have anything if we don't have our freedom. There's already a plan in effect for our state. It's called the Constitution. We have lots of people who aren't following the Constitution. Our legislatures and the bureaucrats appointed by the legislators have lost sight of the fact that their job is to protect our freedom and our property. That's what your job is. It's not to come up with plans and ideas and to create jobs and to feed people and provide health care and all these other things. You're supposed to protect our property and protect our freedom. And what the other gentleman pointed out, you can have all the plans you want, there's always unintended consequences. And the plans in the next administration will change them anyway. All right? So it's all going to get used as a method of control. And we don't want to be controlled. We're tired of being controlled. My wife and I are being taxed out of our home. It's pure and simple. There's no doubt about it. I'm hanging on by the skin of my teeth, getting taxed out of my business. Okay? I raised my price and I'm going into places where I'm charging $25 to these restaurants and bodegas and places. And I'm going in there and they don't have $25 in their register to pay me. Okay? That's how screwed up everything is. And that's because you people are taxing us out of our homes. There's too many people with state jobs. There's too many people with municipal jobs. And we cannot, that is what is not sustainable. Okay?
Followed by Lorraine.
Lorraine Aaron?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Kate's first.
Okay.
And Lorraine.
I'm Kate Millsapson with the New Jersey chapter of the Sierra Club, and we have major concerns that the street strategic plan will hurt our environment and the taxpayer, because it's not about substance or science. It's about taking care of special interests and land speculators. There was no carrying capacity analysis or scientific basis for the state strategic plan, so we will be paying for sewer lines in areas where there's no treatment capacity at the local wastewater treatment plants. You can, this plan is being used to justify any project anywhere in the state with the priority investment criteria that's been announced. There's no transparency or standards, so it's subject to politics and influence. And as I said before, our tax dollars will be paying for some politically connected developer to get a sewer line, and we'll be stuck with the flooding and the increased tax bills to fund it. This project is going to be used to justify subsidies for poorly designed projects like Xanadu and NCAP. And under this plan, the priority growth areas include areas in need of redevelopment as determined by the towns. So the towns will say what needs to be redeveloped, opening up lands to eminent domain use, like what happened in Long Branch and other areas of the state. The Sierra Club is vehemently opposed to the Kelo decision and does not want to see our taxpayer dollars going to those types of eminent domain abuses. I think there's one thing that everyone in this room agrees on, that there needs to be 21 hearings.
Yes.
Is that and I think that the State Planning Commission can achieve the one thing that everybody agrees on with the 21 hearings.
Thank you.
Catherine is up after Lorraine.
Okay, my name is Sally Rogers. I filled out the card for my friend. She's not here. Does anyone have a problem with me speaking in her absence? Okay, thank you. First off, I'd like to know what the OPA is. That's under the Assistant Urban Center evolved into component of healthy metropolitan area. What the heck is that?
This is your public comment portion.
Okay, well, I'd like to know what that is, first off. Second off, it seems that many people in this room who agree with what's going on with the state plan are people that either A, work for the government or have a vested interest in what's going to happen. I'd like to make a very pertinent statement. If this is so important and you're jamming it down our throats, why don't you have a public vote on it?
Yes.
That would, at least if the public ever say he's not here in the room. Secondly, I thought, like, being in this country is all about the American dream. How can the American dream be shoving me into a hub where I have to buy food in a store that may not have the things that I need, or work in a job that doesn't pay me what I want? The American dream is all about striving to be your best, not to have the government tell you what your limitations are. I don't like what's going on in the state of New Jersey. I don't like what's going on in the school systems. I don't like that the government is telling us what they want us to do. They work for us, as these children over here said. And I think there has to be a stop to this now, before it gets so out of control. Do you live in a home? Do you live in a home? Do you live in a home? The other gentleman, do you live in a home? That woman in the back, do you live in a home? You want to be shoved in a hub? Do you want to live in a 2x4 box? Do you want to live like that? Do you want to have unclean water and no?
Very elitist.
They
want us to live there.
I sure as hell don't. And I know a lot of people in New Jersey don't either. We need to stand up for our rights. They're all we have. Don't let them take them away from us.
Catherine, and then Enos Beagle. Catherine, B-A-J-T-A-E.
That would be me.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to offend you.
Okay. What one of the gentlemen said about the brevity of this plan, therein lies the danger. The verbiage, as many have mentioned, is flowery. It is nirvana-like. It's going to make you, give you answer, everything's going to be hunky-dory. However, we need to...
Speak up, please.
I'm sorry?
Speak up.
Speak up. I have never been told that. It's a first, I guess, not
Nothing personal.
Okay, how's that?
Beautiful.
Okay, so we need to look at what these words mean. Sustainable sounds lovely. However, if you look at the Kyoto agreement, the treaty that was basically voted, it failed to pass in the Senate 99-1 in 98. So now it's like being passed in a different way.
Right.
And the verbiage, they knew it was going to be fought against and not acceptable as local Agenda 21 sustainable development. So, according to this Gary Lawrence that's on this piece of paper that that you all might have here, he says we have to call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth, because the affluent middle class, involving high meat consumption, large amounts of frozen and convenience foods, fossil fuel usage, appliances, home, workplace air conditioning, this is not sustainable. What's not sustainable? It means that it's not the same all over the world. There are countries who don't have this. That's because those countries are not free. The primary freedom, the guarantee of freedom, is our right to own property, whether that whether that's the fruit of our labor, our paycheck, whether that is a home, whether that is a stable with horses, that is your right to have that property. And that guarantees freedom. Once the government, any level of government, federal, state, town, whatever, starts taking that away, your freedom is gone. And if you look at all these sort of definitions, somebody said there weren't any definitions, they're vague, but when you have all these various areas that they want to develop, alternate growth areas, a corridor, so are we going to be corralled into these hubs? There's one way out. Now, there is a map out there on the internet. I don't know if anyone has seen it. It is the death map of Agenda 21. These areas are not connected. So this corridor is your egress and ingress into your hub. And just to mention something about, and who is the government to determine how land is going to be used? It's our land. It's our property. And the gentleman, I just want to expand and give you a real example of what he said when he saw these huge tenements. I'm from Hungary. We came here when I was little. I'm not going to say how many years ago. And this family back home, I was stunned when I went back home and visited family that they, at one time, consider communism, Russian control. They lived in a government house in their little apartment. They don't have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. They have 3 rooms, 2 rooms, 4 rooms. Wow. Those were constructed so the plumbing was not adequate for toilet paper to go down. Imagine that. There was a truck that came by every week for your poopy toilet paper collection. Is that what we want here?
No.
Okay. I'm done.
And then after that's Joe Rollo, R-U-L-O. After the gentleman.
Thank you. My concern is not addressed here. A lot of the concerns that I agree with, including property rights, as well as not letting the developers run roughshod over us, like it happened in Long Branch. But one of my major concerns that hasn't been addressed is that we're facing a big event in the near future of New Jersey as well as the world. It's the climate change issue. The poles are melting, so we're going to have a lot of water. We're already having a lot of water. So now you're letting all these developments to take charge in New Jersey, and you're going to build everywhere with no restriction, and it's going to end up that these places are all going to be flooded. And right now what's happening in North Jersey is all those houses that are being flooded are being bought by the state. The state is paying taxpayers money to buy those houses from those people. We're going to end up having to pay with our taxpayers' money for all these development that's going to be built in these flood zones, new flood zones, and we're going to end up being more bankrupt as a result of all this unfettered, uncontrolled development. I'm concerned that this plan is going to allow all kinds of new things to come up where you really need to take care of the new realities of the new era that we're in. That the plan needs to take, other states like Washington, for example, and New York State are asking their insurance firms to evaluate what's going to happen with respect to the new environment. And here, our governor is totally oblivious to this. He's opening the whole state up for development. He's letting all the big developers to take charge, and basically it's going to end up hurting the state much more than it will help all this unchecked development. Thank you.
And then from C-O-T-T or C-O-H? All right, sorry about that.
That's okay. The one thing that I'm kind of confused about is if the plan is a state plan and it consists of 33 counties. With the state plan, you have 21 counties, you have several towns within those counties, and I'm running for U.S. Senate, so I'm all over the state. And anybody that knows about this, a lot of people are frustrated. And the thing that worries me a little bit is that there may be good parts of this plan and there may be bad parts of this plan. But with 6 meetings, it's not enough. And it's coming across as a closed process. And I know that Governor Christie absolutely wouldn't want a meeting like this to come across as being closed, or like anything's being hidden. There's a lot of people during the day that can't make it here, and at 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, it's good for a whole sector of people, but what about people who work at night? They can't come during the day, or business owners. And I'll be honest with you, I've been here, I think this is my 3rd meeting, and I know that you don't set it up, so it's a treasure hunt. But I will tell you, it was absolutely wild getting in this place. And I will tell you that if I wasn't the patriot that I was, it probably would have turned around and left, because this place is a madhouse. It's a beautiful campus. So is the other Stockton. But, you know, you have people that are challenged, people that are seniors, and this is big boy stuff. This is a state plan. This isn't something that's small. And there's only 6 meetings. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of people in this state that are just asking for something simple. more meetings. And I believe that Governor Christie, being the open person and being as transparent as he is, and I consider him a friend, would absolutely concur if there was a way that that message could be brought to him. I think that this is going to sabotage this state plan. It's that serious. And it shouldn't be the issue of this whole entire thing. But my main concern, in addition to that, is in New Jersey, you have a business person like the gentleman over there who's frustrated, and in the map of this state, we have to make sure that in addition to these pods, that we have room for manufacturing, and that Agenda 21 isn't going to condition and push out manufacturing, which is going to bring in jobs, which is going to make the real estate sector better in the state. Closing with that, I would just ask that they consider opening up during the day. I know at nighttime, which is fair, a lot of people work during the day, but there's a lot of seniors. And the other thing that I'm shocked at is Ocean County. I mean, why would they not do Ocean County? Why wouldn't they open up to Ocean County? To me, I'm utterly confused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank is up next, followed by David Lucia.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Frank. I'm with the. I just want to mention a couple of groups here because you got to realize, folks, that you guys are divided and you guys have to be conquered. You're not hooked up. You're just people. We're the ones that it says in the Constitution, all inherent power is available to us, and we don't really have that now. So there's a couple of Tea Party groups I want to mention. There's mine, Monmouth County Tea Party group. There's Jackson over here. There's Ocean County Citizens for Freedom. There's New Jersey Shore. There's Bay Shore. I think Middlesex just left. You know, if you want, hook up to somebody over here and come to a meeting. And maybe these things won't be happening. Because the problem is, this has been happening 30, 40 years. You know, the Federal Department of Education in '79 with Carter, what are they doing? Killing us, things are worse. The state's going to get involved. Listen, the state can't even, the towns and the states can't even handle a dog shelter. I was in Jersey City, they killed 80 of them. I couldn't even get to a grand jury because of Barry Allen. We got some problems. You guys need to know about these things. You have no rights. You don't have property rights. You pay property taxes and rent. Come on. They're going to do what they want to you. Come election time, like we tried, we busted our humps, and they're still going to get in. Because how many people are here watching TV and not coming out? I like the environment. I was an environmentalist. I was a feminist in college. So I'm not just to the right. I've been all over. But I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a patriot. I love everybody here. And I want everything clean. But there's smart ways to do it. I've seen the government do it with their head in their... I've seen the things they do. They don't have it. They're going to set up a chromium manufacturing somewhere where there's no trains and it's going to cause more damage, probably have a runoff. They're going to put, you know, a bunch of condos somewhere where the road's going near, you know, there's going to be traffic. Are you tired of sitting in lights? Are you tired? Well, here's another thing they can plan. You go down Route 35 and 36 and you catch every stinking red light. That's 20% more gas my car's using. Focus on that. Let the grass grow on the ramps to the parkway. I'm serious. That creates a lot of oxygen. Photosynthesis. I'm an electrical engineer, a little bit of scientist, a little bit of all of that. They don't do that. They just want to control. It's the bonding. There's a lot of money with bonding, like the guy said over here from the Middlesex Tea Party group. When the rooster comes to call, you got to pay. And you're going to lose your house unless you want to pay double, triple. They're not doing things right. Nothing against anybody here. You know, maybe there's mandates on them. We don't know. We definitely need, though, I'll tell you this, a lot more meetings. Definitely. If somehow that could get to the governor and we can work together, maybe with the groups, do some emails, phone calls. That's what we got to do, because there's just too many unknowns here. Thank you.
David, and then K-I-N.
King.
David, sorry.
Okay.
Hi, my name's David.
just a citizen, property owner. I don't know a whole lot about the plan, but anything that the government does, you have to question, okay? They want to create these sites, where people can live and stuff like that. What is it going to do to pre-existing property owners? What would be the outcome down the road to somebody owning a farm, large lot, or anything like that? What is the outcome down the road from all this? Pre-existing. That's what I'd like to know, or how will that play out in the future? But anything the government does, you got to question it. Let the free market handle it. I have a friend who works in Jersey City. He lived in Woodbridge. Got a nice commute. It wasn't a bad commute to Jersey City. Then he wanted to sell. He wanted to live in Jackson. He has a nice house in Jackson and stuff. I wouldn't do it myself, but that's his prerogative, what he wants to do with his property, And that's what I think it's going to be coming down to, We own a property, and we have the right to do what we want. It's our own property. We don't need somebody mandating how our property is going to be used up to a point, And some of this plan looks like it'll drown out people with large properties down the road. It looks like they have a scheme here to eliminate people with large properties and stuff like that in open space. People that own open land, they got a way of, I'm sure there's something in there where they'll be able to confiscate it. There's a lot to look at here. And like the guy over here said, we need more meetings, and it has to be more open, maybe publicized in the paper and stuff like that. Okay.
The next gentleman, Andrew Daniel.
Kingpin from Clifton, New Jersey. I got a couple things. One is last night at the meeting in Morristown, the mayor here, I'm sorry, was very disingenuous because he said he never heard of Agenda 21. And from talking to folks here...
Until December.
No, you said it last night. I have you on tape. I listened to you. You said it last night was the first time you heard of Agenda 21. So I got to tell you that really taints my whole opinion of you and these meetings. I want to know, though, the stakeholders, which I do have an Oprah in my bag, which I will hand to you before we leave, on all these meetings and all of those transcripts, because there were 15 of those meetings. Stakeholders. What about the property owners? What about us taxpayers? Why didn't we get 15 meetings? We got 6. It's just unbelievable. Maybe you heard of this document, but I'll read you the first paragraph and maybe you'll know what it is. And it says, all persons are by nature free and independent and have certain natural and unalienable rights, among which those are enjoying the defending of life, liberty, and acquiring and possessing and protecting property. You guys, it's like in the pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness. It's the New Jersey State Constitution. Maybe you should tell the governor to read it, because I got to tell you something. He's nothing more than a bully. And it really annoys me that this is another example of him and his bulliness, is that he just pushes us around. He gave the stakeholders 15 meetings and give us 6. What happened to our rights? I got to tell you one thing. 2 years from now, it's time for a change. We're going to be happily looking for another governor, because this is not working for us. Long-term funding sources. I was born and raised in the ghettos of Newark, and I got to tell you something. You go down there, and you look at these pods, they're still there. Most of them they knocked down. They were called the projects, and they didn't work. If you go to Chicago, the Roger Taylor homes in Chicago, 70 acres of a mess. Okay? And you're going to tell me you got all these groups, and they just annoy the heck out of me. And all you guys come here, you read the same thing over at every meeting. Can't you get creative? It really annoys the heck out of me. And I got to tell you that this is nothing more, and the terminology's here, it's nothing more than Agenda 21. Go get it and read it, folks. It's there. It's Agenda 21. And I'll be damned if the United Nations is going to dictate to me over my dead body in my country how to live. We need to abolish that law from 1985 called the Planning Act, Because our forefathers did great without it. We don't need it then. We don't need it now. Thank you.
Tell me what you really think.
I'll take a mic. Thank you. My name is Andrew Daniele. I live in Farmingdale, lifelong tax-paying resident of New Jersey. I have a question because, like a few people have said, it's very, very difficult for us working folk to get to a 6 o'clock meeting. So I don't know if this was covered. I got here as quickly as I could. It would have taken me even longer if I had to ride my bicycle here. But once these meetings are over, how is this determined if it's passed or not?
The SPC votes on it.
Who?
You get state planning commission.
Okay. So my question then is...
This is the time for comments.
Well, my comment in the form of a question is, if every one of us disagreed, what difference would it make? Is this representation? I don't think so. In other words, if we had 1,000 people at each meeting, and we would if more people knew about what was going on, and every person disagreed, what would it matter? Is this not just a charade? This is not representation.
Call the legislators and tell them to repeal the law.
My second question, which will not be answered, is where did this plan come from and who wrote it? Does anyone know?
You win.
The stakeholders.
Not our legislators, not people we voted, I would assume.
Right.
Okay. Well, then my real comment is, there's a meeting in 2 days in Bordentown at another obscure, hard-to-find place. I suggest that you call all your friends, all your family, everyone who has property and wants to keep it, to bring more people down. Maybe we can get more press, and maybe we can make a difference, because obviously our elected officials aren't representing us. And this really is a joke. You know, we're giving up our time, we're giving up our hard-earned gas money to get here, and they're laughing at us behind our
I think what they don't
backs.
understand is that some of us are willing to give up our lives.
Sorry, one at a time.
Just like our ancestors did.
You betcha. Okay. So in closing, with all due respect, I would like to say that if more people knew about this, we would have more people here. But again, I went to the meeting down in Gloucester. Unless you were local, I was completely lost. I grew up in this area, so I knew how to get here. And I know that a lot of my friends I told about, they were like, I'm not going to Monmouth University. It really is a hassle. Let's have it at the Garden State Arts Center. Let's have it at Convention Hall in Asbury Park. Let's have it someplace easy to find, easy to get to. Let's have it on a Saturday. Let's have it on a weekend. What? Okay, but this is not representation. This is not representation.
The press also.
Yeah, so I would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody submit a request for comment that did not get access to comment?
No, but I would like to make a comment. I find it hilarious that all these plans are going to be done without costing our taxpayers any money. It's all coming out of money that's already in the department. What a joke.
You don't have a property rights, you don't have any of the rights. Your rights are totally loaded with, you know, property. And I protested at Walmart, people asked me there, that Kilo decision, Kilo versus London is a disaster. Everybody should have been protesting when that came into law. That was a total abuse. And I think we need to stand together. I've seen eminent domain happen to my parents, who were senior citizens, handicapped. If it wasn't for my brother and I to find them a place,
they would have been relocated, God knows where, and that was the New Jersey school construction that was supposed to expand the school, and they wind up taking all these properties and all these people who were heartbroken, and they never looked at why, because it was fraud, right? Remember, Corzine didn't do anything about it. He didn't hold anybody accountable for $9 billion, and the state was in a bad economic situation to begin with. Why not? Of course, then he goes to MF Global trying to screw everybody over again. These are the same people, people in corporation that are never satisfied. All they are concerned about is their bottom line, how much money they can make. They're going to give a shit about anyone.
Please remind everybody that we have a mechanism for written comment. Written comments are very helpful to us. You can be specific on the plans, the page numbers, the particular passages, very, very invaluable to us. I appreciate if, I'm sorry?
People like to have open comments, so people...
Well, the folks here. So, if you have any comments, please be sure to put them on paper, and be sure that you can call me in my office. If you want, after the meeting, I'll give you my card. You can call me or Dan anytime. We'd be happy to discuss that. With that, thank you very much. And, yeah,